Great, thanks, Kylie. I'd like to welcome everyone this evening to the Town of Greater Napanee regular session of council for the 23rd day of July, 2024. Just before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that this evening's meeting is going to be live streamed and recorded on our YouTube channel. So for the folks that can't be here tonight or watch this evening live, they'll have the opportunity to watch pretty much any time between now and eternity. So welcome everyone, and we'll get started. We'll call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the our closed session matters that we dealt with earlier this afternoon. Look for a motion to rise and report from our closed session meeting. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. I'd like to report that in closed session this evening, Council approved the closed session minutes of July 9th, received information regarding the security of municipal property and gave direction to staff, received information regarding negotiations to be carried on by the municipality and gave direction to staff, and received information regarding 2 labor relations matters and gave directions to staff. And we'll also look for a second motion this evening from closed session that council authorize staff to enter into a lease agreement for the continued operation and maintenance of the existing sewage lagoons under the terms and conditions as directed in closed session. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor Shank. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. I'll look for a motion for the adoption of the agenda as presented. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Pennell. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we'll start off this evening, and this is always my most favorite part of council meetings. It's our presentation part of our meeting, and this evening we would like to issue a certificate of recognition to Bill and Marina Kosmopoulos from La Pizzeria. I have to admit, I think probably one of the most satisfying parts of this job is recognizing the great accomplishments of residents of our community. This evening, we are here to recognize the wonderful career of Bill and Marina Kosmopoulos, owners of La Pizzeria restaurant in downtown Napanee. Amazingly, 43 years ago, Bill and Marina opened a small and inviting pizza shop on the north side of Dundas Street in the downtown. Over the next 4 decades, they were able to provide a spot which became a staple in our downtown area. They survived the tough economic times experienced in our downtown core. They raised their 3 children there, and they were able to provide a consistent and inviting place for residents of Napanee to feel welcomed. Not only that, but you also left the store with a great tasting pizza. Last week, I stopped by the store to ask Bill and Marina if they would be able to attend our council meeting this evening to receive a small token of our appreciation for their dedicated commitment to our community. In our conversations, something really struck home for me. Marina related that something she will really miss is seeing all the kids stop by during their lunch hour for a slice of pizza. And then it dawned on me that 43 years ago, I was one of those kids. And when you think about it, Bill and Marina have influenced 2 generations of our community by investing in our town. And of course, you never know when you're going to make a difference in the life of an internationally renowned pop rock superstar. And if 43 years of dedication to our community wasn't proof enough, in true Napanee fashion, Bill offered to bring pizza for this evening's meeting. So if Bill and Marina could come forward, we at the Town of Greater Napanee would like to honor you for your commitment to our community and wish you a very long and well-deserved retirement. So come on up, Bill and Marina.
Okay. Especially you came down and give us this opportunity here to come here and see everybody here, the council and everybody. We thank everybody, and we thank the town of Napani, all the people from Napani, because they are on the side, beside us all the time for 40 years. And I'm gonna miss them. We don't go nowhere. We're gonna stay around here, but we're gonna miss everybody, like it's like family.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
And thank you again, and Bill and Marina, for doing what you've done for our municipality. So thank you.
And we're gonna thank Avril too,
Yes.
Avril Lavigne.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
She made us famous in all over the world.
Yeah, how could we forget Avril? So
No,
you're
that's
absolutely
right.
right.
Yeah,
So
that's-
thank you again. Thanks again, and you're more than welcome to stick around if you want, or if you're more welcome to leave. So. Thanks, folks. We'll move on to the deputation portion of our meeting. First up are scheduled deputations, new items, and I don't believe we have any of those, Madam Clerk. Deputations items on the agenda, and I don't believe we have any of those either, right? Now, I do understand that we've got a gentleman here this evening that would like to address council, and with a motion to accept that, we can listen to him. We won't be able to give you all the time maybe that you want, but we'll definitely listen to you, and sir, and we'll get you to come up here and come up to the front. So we'll look for a motion moved by Councillor Sank, second by Councillor Hicks. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Sir, did you want to address council? Yeah, did you want to address council? Yes. Yeah, come on up to the front. And I know you probably haven't been here before, so yeah. What you have to do is the microphone in front of you. You got to push the button that says talk. You can sit or stand, whatever you feel comfortable at. You have to push the button to talk. And when you release the button, and then obviously the folks at home won't be able to hear. So if you just make sure that you do push the button to talk, because the folks at home are going to want to hear. So before we get started, I just get you, sir, to identify yourself, so we've got your name for the record.
My name is Robert Brown. I am a resident of Napanee. I have been a resident of Napanee for 30 plus years.
Great. Thanks, Robert. And what would you like to speak to us this evening about?
I would just like to address the council on the ongoing homeless encampment that is going on up at Springside Park. I do believe that this poses a threat to the community and a large safety hazard due to the amount of families and small children that occupy that green space on a daily basis. There are large amounts of drug paraphernalia being found around the area. Small children are finding used drug paraphernalia and needles around there, and I believe this should be addressed by the council.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Just hang tight. We'll see if anybody has any questions, and I'll try and give you a sort of an overview as to where we're going, where we've been, and where we hope to end up, I guess. So is there any questions from council for Mr. Brown? Seeing none. Your timing is really quite good. At our next regular session of the council, which will be the end of August, we're hoping to review a bylaw, if I'm not mistaken, Madam Clerk, with respect to maybe how we can try and deal with some of the homeless problem. I mean, as you're probably aware, it's right through every municipality in this country. and it's multifaceted. You know, it's not an easy problem to solve, and it's been generations in the making. So I can assure you that we hear you, and you're not the only voice that have reached out to us, not only today, but yesterday and the day before and the day before and the day before that. So
I understand, council. I get this. I know that this is an ongoing issue, and I understand that you've probably been bombarded by many residents of this community on this issue.
yes, we have. So bear with us. If you're available on the 27th of August, 27th of August, we're hoping to bring a report forward that it's not going to solve the problem, but it may help us try and put a Band-Aid on it, I guess the best way of putting it. So
If we can at least mitigate the issue of the open use or the drug paraphernalia lying around, because I am going to be a soon-to-be father, and I know a lot of my friends have small children. And to be honest, the dangers of having this stuff lying around is not something that I want them to deal with. Also, let me say that I understand that the burden that this puts on the town itself for its taxpayers, because this also increases the members that you have to send out there to clean up the mess on a daily basis or semi-daily, however this is going down.
There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that it's a challenge that this municipality, as well as every other municipality, are going to try and resolve. I think it's fair to say there's not many people probably in this room, if not in this municipality, that understands the drug subculture better than me. I made a living in it. So we hear you. We understand. We hear every voice that have reached out to us. And we're asking, you know, both you and members of the public to bear with us. You know, it is a challenge, and it's a challenge that, you know, it may not even be our mandate, but we're the ones that are dealing with it, and we're the ones that have to deal with it. And so we're working on it, but I'd like to thank you for just bringing it to our attention. Like I say, thank you very much.
I thank you for your time, and I understand that everybody is going through a tough time right now, and I would appreciate just a little forwardness on this issue, and I do appreciate you relating your current stance on everything and how we're going to correct this. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, sir. We'll look for a motion to note and receive the deputation from Robert Brown, moved by Councillor Shanks, seconded by Councillor Hicks. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Correspondence items on the agenda. I don't believe we have any of those, Madam Clerk. Unfinished business. I don't believe we have any unfinished business. The administrative consent agenda, and bear with us, this usually is a fairly lengthy process, but we're going to cover a lot of ground here in a short period of time. So we'll start off the administrative consent agenda with the council minutes, regular session of council, July 9th, 2024. Is there anything in those minutes that any members of council have any questions on or would like to speak about? Seeing none. Correspondence for information items dated July 23rd, 2024. Is there any of those correspondence for information items that anyone from council would like to speak to or have any questions about? Seeing none, the Center Street Boat Launch Parking Enforcement Report. Is there anything in that report that anyone would like to speak to or have a conversation about? I'll go to Deputy Mayor Calver and then to Councillor Pennell.
Just was wondering what the tickets and number of tickets and stuff have we wrote down there, or how that's all being handled now that we've got the new signage up and making it very clear as to where boats park and where the residents park?
Okay, go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Through your worship, I apologize. I did write this report before I left on vacation. So as of July 8th, we had 49 tickets issued for that location. I can try to get you more current numbers and send those out to council tomorrow, but unfortunately I don't have that number available right this second.
Okay, so we are writing tickets versus education at this point.
Through your worship, yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Calver. Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, I just noticed while we're reading on here, we're talking about the signs that were installed. Something that I saw the other day was a boat trailer backed into the spot with no vehicle attached to it. And when I went down to investigate, I looked at the sign and it says boat trailer parking only. So they took that legitimately. I do believe that maybe we might want to rethink what the signs actually say as well.
Thank you, Councillor Pennell. I know that staff are listening and we'll most definitely look at that. I'm thinking if nothing else, we're keeping assigned people happy. Is there anything else with respect to the Center Street boat launch parking enforcement? Seeing none, the activity report, legislative services, July of 2024. Is there anything in that report anyone would like to speak to? And I guess, Madam Clerk, would you like to speak to that report prior to asking any questions?
Through your worship, I can. I just wanted to know we did have a late edition of 8.5. Not sure if it's showing on your agenda. Acquisition of 893 County Road 41.
I don't have it on my hard copy. Did I miss one then? I'll tell you what, let's go back. Let's go back to, it's 8.3, correspondence for information items dated, no, sorry, 8.5, acquisition of 893 County Road 41. Is there anything in that report that anyone has any questions? And Madam Clerk, would you like to speak to that at all?
Through your worship, just this report is here per council's prior direction to provide public information about the reasoning for the acquisition of this property. There is also a bylaw to authorize this transaction later on the agenda tonight, but this is just to provide the background information so that the community has it available.
Great, thanks, Jess. Is there any questions or comments with respect to the acquisition of 893 County Road 41? Seeing none, now we'll move on to the activity reports for legislative services. Jess, did you want to comment that before we entertain any questions?
Through your worship, just because it's relevant to some conversations we just had here, I would like to highlight near the end of here, in the month of June, we did notice that while the number, and who knows, our July statistics may look very different from this, but in June, the number of case files we had reported to us related to the encampments on public property were only 17% of our case files we received, but they were taking over 60% of officer time for that month. So that's just something to be really aware of as we continue these conversations next month's meeting. I know our department is not the only one feeling this impact, but also just wanted to highlight how valuable having our supplemental contract through Frontenac has been, because otherwise we would not be able to be doing any parking enforcement and very minimal yards and grass enforcement without that support. So just wanted to express our appreciation for having that in this year's budget.
Great, thank you, Madam Clerk. Does anybody have any questions to Jess with respect to her report or presentation? Seeing none. Activity report, infrastructure services, July 2024. And I believe, Mr. Defoe, is that yours?
Through your worship, nothing further to add. Both directors are here this evening if you have a detailed question.
Great, thank you, Pete. Is there any questions or comments with respect to that report that we can direct to Peter's crew? Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to highlight that the debits is now available at the Self-Red Waste facility. So it's a good improvement. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Pennell. I'm going to agree. I know in another municipality, which I own property, they have that and it works very slick. So I think it's going to be a good addition to our waste, our dump there. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Is there anything else? Deputy Mayor Gower.
Yeah, just in light of the road work that's been going on, I see the Oliver Side Road on here. I've received quite a few compliments for all the road work that's going on in the municipality this year. I just wanted to say thank you to all the guys doing the road work, and Jeff and his crew and Peter and his guy, everybody involved with it, because it's nice when you have people calling and saying, geez, they're doing this road and they've done a great job on it. It's just a really, really nice, instead of getting the negative phone calls we normally get. So I just want to say thank you.
Great, thank you, Deputy Mayor Gower. Is there anything further? Seeing none, activity report, growth and development, July of 2024, and I believe that's Mr. Nobes. Mike, did you want to bring any attention to anything in your report?
Thank you, Worship. I did just want to highlight for council a couple of items. 69 Dundas Street East, staff had issued previously an order to remedy on the property, which was not complied with and was not appealed to the Property Standards Committee. So the municipality is now in the position to undertake the works associated with that order at the cost of the property owner. So we intend to provide direction to our contractor to undertake boarding and painting and removal of parapet walls that were erected illegally on that building. The total cost is around the $13,500 mark, but would be applied to the tax roll and collected in the same manner as taxes. Additionally, the Atura battery energy storage phase 1 is nearing site plan review completion. All technical aspects are more or less completed, and we're drafting the site plan agreement as we speak. So the intention is for that site plan agreement to be executed, as well as the amendment to the temporary use or rather development agreement related to the previously temporary use lands associated with the Trans-Canada development. That will allow for the site to be developed for the battery storage facility. And lastly, upon execution of those agreements, a holding provision will be brought forward to council in the form of a zoning bylaw amendment to lift the holding from the lands to allow the development to proceed. And lastly, our J.J. O'Neill school expansion site plan review is complete, and the site plan agreement is ready for execution, and building permit issuance will follow shortly thereafter.
Great. Thanks, Mike. It's always good to hear those good news stories with respect to the growth in our municipality. Is there any questions of Michael with respect to his, go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
Michael, this will come as no surprise to you through your worship. If you could just give a very brief update on the Gibbard district. As I mentioned in my email this morning, I didn't see it referenced, and I do get questions or overhear comments. So what you provided was very good. Thank you.
Through you, your worship, the Gibbard district has been moving along quite steadily. Although it might not appear that there's a lot of action on the site, a lot of the work that has been undertaken in the past couple of months has been internal to the parking garage structure below grade, as well as work to the rear of the building, so on the water side. A lot of that work is more or less hidden from view, but it's very much ongoing. So the Gibbard team and staff have been working on some site plan related works, minor amendments related to access down to the rear of the mill building. And we're also working with the Dornkamp team on replacement of the town's secondary raw water intake line, which has been was previously authorized by the former term of council to be replaced, where the town purchases the materials and Dornkamp is undertaking the installation. So the raw water line traverses the entire Gibbard site and into our water treatment plant. And the building is effectively on top of this piping. So we had replaced it. It's all completely replaced underneath the building, and now they're working towards finishing that off towards the plant itself. So a lot of activity. A lot of it is unfortunately hidden from view from the roadside, but there is very much activity ongoing, and the Gibbard team does anticipate having occupancy for the first building in Q4 of 2025.
Great. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Nobes, and thank you, Councillor Hicks, for bringing that to our attention. Is there anything else? Seeing none. Financial Services Activity Report, July 2024. Ms. Hamill, I believe that would be your report. Is there anything you would like to highlight in that report?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have anything particular for this month's activity report that I believe needs highlighting, but the report is there, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great. Thanks, Alan. Is there any questions for Alan with respect to her report? Seeing none. Activity Report, Community and Corporate Services, July 2024. And who's going to speak to that? Go ahead.
Thank you, through your worship. I have nothing to add to the report, but happy to take any questions you may have.
Are there any? Go ahead, Councillor Cornell.
Thank you, Worship. I'm just wondering, as I'm looking through to the hall rentals, if you can explain what the in-kind in-kind numbers are for, and also, yeah, let's start with that. Thank you.
Thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Pennell. Those would be different community groups that we give the halls or community spaces to for free. So that's what we're giving out to different groups in kind, as opposed to funds. This would be something like our SOS partnership that we've done in the past, providing them spaces free of charge.
Does that answer your question, Dave, or do you have another one?
It does, thanks, but I thought that we did something, whether last term of council, we stopped that. No?
Through your worship, to Councillor Pennell, at this time, it's still moving forward for some groups. Happy to review that and come up with a listing of those that are receiving in-kind donations.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Is there anything else with respect to the Community Corporate Services Report? Councillor Hicks.
I've seen the McCalla truck driving around town, so this is great that the CCTV system is underway. And I was talking to Mr. Cuthell and Mr. Dwyer yesterday, and I understand one of their team members has been working with you from Public Works, and it's going very well. So kudos on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hicks. Is there anything further? Seeing none, the activity report, Fire Department, July 2024, and I believe, Chief, that would be yours.
Just one item to highlight, Your Worship, is the lack of smoke alarms in the community is, with a pun intended, a little alarming. We've visited over 43 homes, and we've rectified 12 smoke alarms that were not functioning. Of the 43 homes visited, we accessed 18, and 66% of those homes visited did not have a properly functioning smoke or CO alarm. So I just wanted to reiterate the importance of having a smoke and CO alarm for each in the homes. One on every floor is recommended outside of the sleeping areas at a minimum, and the CO alarm is now a legislative requirement under the Hawkins-Giggins Act, and needs to be in place in a home. If there's anybody that requires help, Your Worship, the fire department is at the community service to assist them with that, and the smoke alarm program continues throughout the summer into the fall. Thank you, Your Worship.
Great, thank you, Chief. Sometimes surprising, maybe not surprising, how something so simple and small can make such a difference. So thanks for bringing that to our attention. Is there any questions or comments for the Chief? Go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
Thank you. I almost forgot. Chief, the early earthquake warning system that's installed at Station 1, can I just ask that if there is a tremor, can you report on it? Because I'm really interested to see how often this happens.
Thank you, through Your Worship. It's relatively new to myself, and I plan to bring this forward to a senior leadership team and have a council report outlining just what that can benefit the community. I believe it's a system that's part of a chain of earthquake sensors across the country, and we're part of that and having one there. So I'll have more to report on that at a later time. If that helps.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Hicks. Is there anything else? Anybody have any questions for the Chief? Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
I'm not sure if this is correct or not, but if you do not have a working, I can't believe 66% of the homes did not have a working smoke alarm. But if a residence does not have a working smoke alarm and there is a fire, does that void any of their insurance? Does that have an impact on their insurance related because they did not have a working smoke alarm or a CO detector?
Through Your Worship, I can't answer that with any amount of factuality, but I can tell you that not having a working smoke alarm or carbon monoxide detector can kill you. And I've been witness to that in my 40 years of fire service. And I've seen the effect of not having one, which is tragic for all concerned.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Shank.
I'm right an advocate of having a working smoke alarm, but there's smoke alarms now that are only good for 10 years. And you don't have to replace their lifetime battery in it for that 10 years. So as soon as they're activated, so when they say, oh, I can't get it because I don't want to change the battery, they are, if you contact the Napanee Fire Services, they do have smoke detectors that they will help install, and they do have, you know, as soon as they're activated, that's it. You don't have to worry about batteries or anything else. So it's not like it takes all the guesswork out of it. It's just, it'll only save lives.
Yeah, and ultimately, that's the most important thing. So you're absolutely right. So is there anything else? Seeing none, we'll look for a motion that council consent to the approval of the following routine items: that the minutes of the regular session of council dated July 9, 2024 be adopted as presented, that the correspondence for information items dated July 23rd, 2024 be received, that council receive for information the Center Street Boat Launch Parking Enforcement Report, and further that council confirm the enforcement approach as described within the report, that council receive for information the acquisition of 893 County Road 41 report, and that the activity reports for legislative services, infrastructure services, growth and development, financial services, community corporate services, and the fire department for the month of July 2024 be received for information. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Hicks. If there's no further comments, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Shank.
This is for financial services, Alan. It was when I was going through it, because there's so many different line items. Do we pay monthly the OPP? Is this a monthly bill that we have?
Yes, Councillor, that's correct.
Just for $342,772 per month is your bill. So just as long as everybody knows, I'm not saying that they don't do a good service or great service. It's just what the cost of doing business is. That's what the cost is every month.
Yeah, I think I see those checks once a month, so it really hits home. You're absolutely right. But once again, we're mandated to have policing, and we have to look after it. So yeah. So is there anything else? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Items for discussion or for consideration: Huffs Lane parking update to SR 326-2023. And I think, Mr. Cuthell, are you going to speak to that?
Thank you, Worship Council. This is an update report based on a report that staff had brought forth to Council in December of last year in regards to the reallocation of the parking on Huffs Lane to accommodate for the greater need in the wintertime during the ice fishing season, and also the installation of a portable toilet at that location for the winter months, primarily being January and February when the ice is safe for ice fishing, as well as some clarity that there was a request from resident on Huffs Lane to plant mature foliage along the edge separate their house from the newly established parking area. And through the last report, it was mentioned, but it was not in the resolution that council was not going to support that request. And it was mentioned that staff recommended that we would be a precedent setting situation, and that the water access has been there for some time and being used by the residents. So just looking for clarity on that. And sorry, left my mouse, but a few of the different departments have monitored the newly set up at the Huffs Lane boat launch and have reported back through this report. Bylaw has visited the location and have issued 6 tickets this year. Their observation at the newly designed parking area, there was some times when they visited the area and vehicles were parked array and not in the designated way they should. And they felt that could cause issues for snow plowing operations. Public Works comments, as our plow drivers were down there, they noticed for the most part, people were adhering when they were down there and they were able to complete the snowplow operations, though it would be difficult if they did not park as the signs designated. Parks comments, confirmed that the porta potty was installed for the month of January and to the 1st of March, and their staff would support the continued operation of supplying the portable toilet at that location for the winter seasons. And then also that both Parks and Public Works staff have commented that this site doesn't meet the standards of our typical boat launch throughout our municipality. The access there, there's a good distance of shallow waters, and it depends on the level of the bay at the time. So staff recommend that the online directories and everything else and advertising that as a boat launch to be pulled down, and it just be maintained as a water access for residents of our municipality. If they know about it and they feel the access would suit their needs for the launching of their boat, by all means, canoes and small watercraft, but not to advertise it to the broader public as a boat launch. And happy to take any other questions on this update.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Is there any questions or comments for Jeff with respect to his report or the presentation? Go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Jeff, through you, Your Worship. So I have a question. I drove down there not too long ago, and have the signs been changed in the last, I'll say last month, to reflect the park? I seem to recall that we made the change based on the original motion that Councillor Shank and I made, and that the Public Works crew said, no, that's not going to work because we need to be able to plow the snow on the right-hand side. So you can't park on the east side of the road. You can only park on the west side of the road. So that would allow Public Works to get down with the plow and not effectively hit vehicles. I'm pretty sure it says no parking on both sides of the road. I could be wrong, but I'll take your word for it if.
So I could clarify that a bit. The request back in December was to remove parking on both sides of the road until you get to the newly established parking area just north of the last house on the west side of the road, and that parking within the newly established bulb. That gets the cars off of the traveled portion of the road. So it maintains a 6-meter access for emergency services and the plow to go down there. If we had the previous bylaw amendment allowed parking on the side of the road and on the, let's say, right-hand side of the road as you go down, that's where our plows deposit the snow, and we would have plowed everybody in. So no, now it's on, say, the left-hand side, the west and north of the last driveway. And, but also maintaining a no parking area at the very bottom so the plow can go in, turn around, and then exit safely. Thank you.
Question answered. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Hicks. Go, Councillor Shank.
Could you, how many vehicles, just to refresh my memory, how many vehicles can be sustained in that parking lot down north of the road?
I'll just look for a nod on this one. I'm going to say 12, I believe, at this time. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I totally understand that with the water level and a boat ramp not being advertised a boat ramp, but there's a lot of kayakers, there's a lot of other canoe or whatever. So yeah, I agree with your staff recommendation of not advertising it as an actual boat ramp because of the depth of the water. Now, if somebody still wants to launch their boat, it's at their own risk, but you're not promoting it as a boat ramp. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Shank. I think that's the idea and we just want to ensure that we're not restricting anybody from using that. It's just in how we're advertising it on our website is the fact that we don't have docks there. There's no port pad there for launching boats, but I mean, for smaller boats, and I know even medium-sized pontoon boats, you do have the ability to put them in there. It's a little bit tight sometimes. So, but we're not restricting any access down there, and it probably gets used more in the wintertime than it does in the summertime anyway, so. Councillor Hicks.
One more question. Is the boat launch sign, like the actual graphic, is it still at the top of the hill on County Road 9?
I believe that hasn't been removed yet until we have the
Okay.
approval of council.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think there's one just further, I like to refer to as south, I guess. Yeah, and you know where it's about a kilometer or so away, just as you go past there towards Kaiser. So I think there's one there as well. So I think I seen it the other day, so. Is there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that council receive for information the Huffs Lane parking update SR 326-2023 report, and further that council support the staff recommendation to maintain the current parking configuration at this location and the annual installation of portable toilets for the ice fishing season, and further that council confirm that the current level of service is intended to be maintained and no new or additional services provided at this location, including vegetation planting, and further that as the current level of service and shoreline access capacity does not align with the minimum standards of the town's other boat launches. While council commits to maintaining the site as a public water access point, council does not deem it to be an official boat launch and direct staff to update any physical and virtual signage accordingly. Mouthful. Moved by Councillor Hicks, seconded by Councillor Pennell. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks, Jeff. Parking bylaw review. Madam Clerk, is that yours? Oh, no, I see Aggie coming up. So when you get settled in there, Aggie, the floor will be yours.
There's nothing else I need to add to the report, Your Worship. However, I am open to answering any questions you may have.
Thanks. Is there any questions or comments with respect to the report in front of us regarding parking bylaw review? Councillor Schenk.
The $50 fine of the downtown, of parking, the set fine. Do you find, like, how many fines have you been saying you don't have to pay them? I know there was some talk about that. There was some concern that way on certain departments, but do you feel that the fine is $50? Is that acceptable, or is maybe at a little lower rate, or what can, $50 fine, that's no offense, guys, that's kind of steep, but do you feel that the infraction justifies the fine, considering what other municipalities are charging when I'm looking through this, at that location? You know what I mean? I'm not sure. In other locations, I like to see the fine a lot larger, where there's a concurrent problem all the time. So I'm just asking that question just to open it up for discussion.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can comment on that, or Aggie, or not, but I guess it probably is directly related to how many phone calls we get when the tickets are left on the windshield. So, but go ahead, Aggie, I'll let you go first.
So very rarely do we ever reduce fines. It's really based on discretion and compassionate, because as we all know, life does happen from time to time. However, that is reserved for extremely exigent circumstances. And when we're talking about downtown, I'm assuming you mean the boat launch? Or do you mean the 2-hour parking? So normally the 2-hour parking fines or the time restricted fines are lower in municipalities that have parking meters, because there is a way to regulate the parking that is already available, right? So when you look at places that don't have parking meters, the fine is typically higher. However, we are higher than all of our surrounding municipalities that work on our same fee structure, which is under the Provincial Offences Act. So we're about anywhere from $20 to $15 higher as a set fine from our surrounding municipalities.
Go ahead, Mike.
So Aggie, all I'm saying is so God love my wife, but I understand when they go shopping, it's 2 hours by the time you stop and get a coffee, and by the time you browse around and go through other stuff, is 2 hours long enough? You know what I mean? That's what, you know what I mean? I just want to open that up for discussion. Is it just me? Because I've had some clients saying, holy jumping. So by the time I went through 3 or 4 stores and got a coffee and had a chit chat, well, that tore, and then I went ahead and I came back and here's a $50 ticket, and I'm going, oh, holy jumping. I didn't know it was that expensive to shop downtown. So, you know what I mean? That was the concern. So that's the reason why I'm bringing it up for discussion, or if that was just me or.
So we do get a lot of concerns, not regarding the 2-hour parking time limit downtown, but we do receive a lot of concerns surrounding the steepness of the fine. So our early fine, if it's paid within 7 days, it is $35. After 7 days, that's when it escalates to $50. So when we conducted our public consultation, which is attached to the report, you will see that there are some people who have almost no concerns with our downtown parking regulations, but there are people who have concerns regarding the time restrictions and the limits that are already set. Some of them feel they should be lifted entirely. Some people stated they should be only during business hours throughout the week. Some people said they should be mildly extended. I don't get a lot of feedback surrounding the actual time limits on a day-to-day basis, but usually people are more shocked about the fine that they get. But that is something that council can open for discussion if they would like to.
Councillor Hicks.
Through you, your worship. Okay, so I've got three things. The first one is, and it isn't likely to happen anytime in the near future, but it's the holiday season, you're out for dinner, you have that one drink too many, and you're not going to drive home. Or any time of year. We don't want anyone driving home under the influence. I parked my car at 7 o'clock in front of a restaurant downtown. I've had to leave it there for the safety of myself and everyone else. And I come back and find a $50 fine. Now, my question is to you and to the clerk, if the licensed eating establishments located in Greater Napanee, not just downtown, like if you've got a restaurant somewhere else, that's fine too. If they had something issued, like a formal placard issued by the town that they could give to a patron to place in their windshield saying, I took a cab home, can we just avoid fining that person altogether? So that's my first question, because I saw this. Oh, I see everybody's got their hand up and they're smiling.
I think you're going to get some responses to this one, Councillor Hicks, but go ahead.
Okay, so that's the first one. Second one, I know personally, if I go for a coffee with my mother, my daughter, and daughters and grandchildren, 2 hours isn't going to cut it. We're 2 hours just getting everybody in a chair and with a snack. Okay, so I think in the interests of the merchants, 3 to 4 hours would be a better limit on Dundas Street specifically, and maybe John. If you're going to do that, and I liked what you said about removing the designated parking in front of Town Hall, I think there's no staff here anymore, so it shouldn't be, and I don't think that's actually being enforced now, is it? No, so it's just a matter of removing the signs. Better signage directing people to the municipal lot would go a long way. So I noticed the other day on Dundas Street, the alternate parking, I think it was, is hidden by one of the absolutely gorgeous baskets. So somebody's comment was, there's a lot of optical interest going on downtown. You've got other signs, baskets, planners, etc. So, but I do think more signage would be of benefit to everyone, residents and visitors alike. And I'll stop there because I know Matthew has a question or a comment, so.
I believe, yes, I believe Mr. Grant's got his hand up. Go ahead, Matthew.
If I may, through you, your worship, to Councillor Hicks, and I think it also touches on Councillor Shank's question. I think in terms of parking and length of parking, it would depend on the strategy that council has with a very limited resource downtown. Typically, a lot of municipalities take the strategy where they're looking to have some degree of turnover when people come into an area so that you can continue to have people shop anew. The other thing to keep in mind, I would suggest, is the length of parking may encourage people who are actually downtown for other purposes other than just to go to a restaurant or go shopping. Maybe they work there, maybe they're doing something else, to leave their car there and maybe jockey their car from one spot to another. I think the current strategy, and I would let Ms. Hill speak to this, but I think the current strategy, if I were to take a look at it, would be we're looking to have a certain degree of turnover so you can have new people come in and have people cycling in and out. So new people will be shopping downtown, conducting their business, but not necessarily taking the spot from somebody else who's trying to do the same. And so that would be the strategy. And of course, it is council's privilege if they would like to change that strategy, but that's, I would suggest, what we're trying to achieve at present.
Go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
So point taken. Oh, and I would just like to state right up front, I am not in favor of parking meters. So anybody out there, that's not where I want to go with this.
That is also
And-
council's privilege, Counselor.
4 hours, okay, granted, that's half a work day, so you would hope, and I think most of the business owners and staff that work downtown don't take those prime parking spots. You would hope, and I don't think that they do. But 3 hours, I think, would maybe be more reasonable, because you don't want to also chase someone away in order for someone new to come in, because there may not be somebody new coming in that day. You may want to keep that existing person downtown. So I think there is an argument both ways, and maybe split the difference and go for an extension on 3 hours, which also allows the bylaw officer maybe more time to, they're not going back necessarily and checking at 2 hours and 10 minutes. That gives them the opportunity to go elsewhere in town, because I understand there's issues at the hospital because of a lack of parking, whether it's construction, et cetera. They don't need to put maybe as much focus downtown. And do they have to be downtown after the businesses are closed? Most places, with the exception of eating establishments and possibly the spa, are closed by 6 o'clock. So if somebody's parked there visiting someone in an apartment and their car's there for 4 hours, it's not like they're taking that away from someone else. So maybe there's a timing thing that comes into play too, I think.
Go ahead, Aggie.
Through your worship, it's definitely something that's been done in other municipalities, not necessarily in our surrounding municipalities, because as Matthew said, the structure that's in place is meant to increase high turnover. But when you look further west, when you get into the Durham area, they are having areas that are 3 hour limits or 4 hour limits. We do have some side streets that are 4 hour limits that are already in place. But when you're talking about changes to service levels for non-enforcement after business hours, that's what you're looking at. You're looking at a change in service levels that's already kind of been set and requested. So if that is a discussion that council wants to have, absolutely. Obviously, no staff is going to be closed off to it, but that would be what you were looking at, a change of service levels for that request specifically.
Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
The reason why I brought this up, and I'd like council to discuss this and maybe future, ponder it, maybe discuss it again, is that one of the questions you in the survey was, do you believe that there is adequate signage downtown to inform the public of parking restrictions? All right. 55.1% said no. So all I'm saying is let's take a look, see where the problem is, see what we can do and what we can't do. Maybe can do it. Maybe it's just a signage area. If there's a 3 or 4 hour parking on a side street and nobody really knows that, well, because 55% say that I don't know where it is. You know what I mean? So that's the reason why I'm thinking maybe we should look at the avenues of how we can maybe improve this problem and see how we can, solve some of those issues there. Because that's what was in the survey, that 55% said, hey, that's 100 people, but according to this one, 98 people said that's where their concern was.
Yeah, and I'll just bring to your attention that 55% also said that the 2 hour limit was adequate. So we could probably split hairs on this all night. I think the concept of getting people into our downtown and providing the free parking is a very good one. Whether we split hairs and say 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, I can only speak for myself. I can do pretty much the downtown in less than 2 hours. I'll speak to Councillor Hicks's comment with respect to the overindulgence of some people. I think we can't babysit everybody, and we have to make sure people are responsible. And if someone decides that they're trying to drive downtown and all of a sudden they've decided that they've had too much to drink, I think that onus is on them and not on us to give them any kind of a pass to leave their vehicle there overnight. I don't think we need to get into looking after people just because they've had too much to drink. So we're going to give them something, a ticket to say, okay, well, they're being responsible. So we'll let them park here overnight. So at least that's just my humble opinion anyway. So. Go
Through
ahead,
your
Aggie.
worship, I will preface that and say that surrounding major holidays such as Christmas, such as New Year's, there is a little bit more leniency given towards tickets in those times because that is a concern and a consideration. And when we're looking around our Santa Claus parade as well, people are parked well over 2 hours for that. So considerations are given to those big special events that happen.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Cower.
Thank you, through your worship. Most of the businesses downtown, they open at, 9 o'clock in the morning until 5:30, 6 o'clock. So changing it to more than 2 hours per parking space, it does limit how many people they can actually cycle down through. So I'm in favor of just leaving it at what it is. You offer an early payment for your ticket, that sort of thing. So I don't think 2 hours is out of line for downtown when you've only got X number of hours in a day that the businesses are actually open.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cower. Is there anything further? Councillor Hicks.
I did see one comment, through your worship. I did see one comment in the additional comments section of the survey, and actually it was the first comment, and that was about a parking map. Is this something that we could do? So we say, well, check online to see where you're able to park. Well, that's if we could have something provided to the customer, or not, sorry, to the customers, but to the merchants, where they could have just a small, like, these are where your best bets are for parking. They go in to pick up a coffee and, oh, I want to shop downtown, or I have to go to the bank, or I'm whatever. The Legion, I also saw that referenced, to have the parking lots advertised with what the maximum time is. Dundas Street, the maximum, John Street, west, east. If we could have a map done up, we've got a chart listing everything, and like from this part of the street to that part of the street on the west side only. Surely we could come up with something with graphics, yes?
Through you, your worship, that's actually something that's already kind of in the works. But the reason why it hasn't been put out yet is while we are conducting this sign on it, we want to make sure everything is correct and in place already. As you know, these charts were made around and changed around 2015. So it's been a while since there have been any changes, and unfortunately things get moved from time to time without being officially adopted. So we just want to make sure everything is in the right place, which is also the time for you guys to consider if you'd want to make any changes to no parking areas aside from the one that's recommended in the report.
Great, thanks, thanks, Aggie. Is there, go ahead, Deputy Mayor Cower.
Yeah, just off topic of that, I'm just looking under your, the definitions here, part 1 definitions. If you go down to where it says heavy vehicle, means vehicle weighing when unloaded 2 ton or more, and when loaded 3 ton or more. But doesn't include designated vehicles. What is that all retaining to?
Through you, your worship, that's really to protect our infrastructure that has weight limits on it, but are not load restrictions per season. So if somebody parks and leaves a heavy vehicle, as by that definition, such as tow trucks, dump trucks, on a municipal roadway for an extended period of time, it can damage infrastructure if it's not designed for it. So that's why that is in there.
So that takes out pretty much every 3/4 ton that's built, most half tons.
And absolutely, that's something that we can look at changing, and we can look to see what other municipalities do have in place for that. But again, that definition was put in place in 2014, and as we know, that was 10 years ago. So well
Okay,
before
yeah,
my time.
Sorry, well, that just jumped out, and I'm thinking my truck's 3.7 tons. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cower. Is there anything else? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that council receive for information legislative services parking bylaw review report, and further that a draft parking bylaw with changes that incorporates public feedback and the recommendations described in this report be brought forward to a future council meeting for consideration. Moved by Councilor Pennell, seconded by Councilor Shank. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Infrastructure Services Public Works South Shore Road Load Restriction Report. And I see Mr. Dafo coming up. So when you get settled in there, Pete, the floor will be yours.
Your worship, staff conducted an internal review after the last deputation on South Shore Road to enforce load restrictions 12 months of the year. So what staff reviewed was existing road conditions, whether or not the municipality puts year-round road restrictions on any of our municipal roads. We looked at our E11 complaint history for heavy trucks, speeding, and what would the impact be of year-round road constrictions if there was any businesses on that stretch of road. So based on the internal review, there wasn't anything in there that was that would warrant any kind of change from what's down there existing. In addition to that, staff did reach out to local OPP, and they did provide, that's not included in this report, but they did provide a 5-year history of incidents and complaints. And the themes within those do not reflect anything to do with speeding or heavy truck traffic. They were more related to ATV issues and stuff like that. So based on all that information and what it could do to existing businesses on the road, staff are recommending no change.
Great. Thanks, Pete. Is there any questions or comments for Pete's report? Or go ahead, Councillor Shank.
This is just a comment. So after that deputation, I went down and talked to a lot of the individuals that live along that road. And by no means was there any concern near to that level. So totally corresponded to what your report, what you were stating. So there was no concerns. They said actually, one individual went ahead and said a family of ducks actually live in a culvert right near the road and cross the road all the time. And the mother duck lays on top of the road and hasn't been hit in the last 6 weeks. So if there's that many trucks going by, so they all chuckled when I was asking if it was such a grave concern, and they said by no means. But there's a lot of building going along there, so there is a lot of trucks going to those construction sites of, delivering cement and gravel or whatever needs to be done. But by no means was that level, and it corresponded to what your report was, Peter.
Through your worship, if I could just add one more thing, there is ongoing proactive monitoring as well. OPP are doing that as we speak as well. So it's something that will be looked at closely in the future on a regular basis. And if there are any concerns that are noted, then they'll be dealt with independently.
Great. Thanks. Thanks, Pete. Thanks, Councillor Shank. Is there anything else? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that council receive for information the Infrastructure Services Public Works South Shore Road Load Restriction Report, and further that council deny the public request for the year-round load restrictions on South Shore Road. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Norrie. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Infrastructure Services Utilities Water Pollution Control Plant WPCP Project Update. Aerobic Granular Sludge AGS Status Report. And I think that one's yours as well, Pete. So whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Through your worship, this report that's in front of you this evening it builds upon the report that the resolution from May 23rd. So on May 23rd, council approved similar type thing, but it didn't go into the depth of detail that this is. So basically it provided the high level information for the design engineers to move forward to get into the prelim design and then carried all the way to 90%. What you see in front of you this evening, it's a large price tag. It's over $500,000. That just to assure council that does not increase the overall total project value. It's included within it. And what that does is it provides the very specific shop drawings and all the technical support for the design engineers to take it to 100% so that we're ready. One of the, if I can only leave you with one message on this report is that we want to be ready if we get provincial funding. You want to be ready, and you want to have the tender call go out immediately, and we can be in good position with that if we move forward with this. We want to be able to attract, the best quality contractors and the best competitive bidding. And if we delay this in any way, it's going to just increase our risk with respect to cost. I think a lot of throughout the report, I provided an update on the task purpose so there's a bit of a chart that you can flow through to kind of keep council briefed. And it goes all the way back to 2011 when the EA started. And it'll take you right up to the next steps. The only thing that I didn't include on the next steps is that there will be contractor pre-selection that doesn't cost any money. That just gets things in the queue to be ready. So long story short, staff's not going to come in front of council before tender call looking for money. We are going to have everything we need to be at full design, and then and then the next time we're in front of you for money, it'll be to provide, hopefully with provincial support, it's going to be to get that financial strategy so that it works, and then a tender call and award the work. That's where this is going.
Great, thanks, Pete. Is there any questions or comments for Pete? Seeing none, I think it's a good plan. I don't know whether we have much choice. I think we got to forge ahead here and keep our fingers and toes and everything else so we can cross, and hopefully in the next foreseeable future, we'll get some good news from our provincial partners. So thank you for that. We do have a recommendation that the council receive for information the infrastructure services, utilities, water pollution control plant, WPCP project update, aerobic granular sludge status report, and further council authorize staff to enter into a supplier technology and equipment engagement agreement with Aqua Aerobic Systems, Inc. for a sum of $578,227 excluding HST. Moved by Councillor Pennell, second by Councillor Hicks. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Next up, Growth and Development, PLSUBF 2023-062, Springside Meadows, Red Line Draft Plan, and Phase 1 Pre-Servicing. And I see Mr. Nopes has come up. So whenever you're ready, Michael, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is I'll call it a two-part report in front of council this evening. So the developer has requested a red line to the draft plan of subdivision and a pre-servicing request. So I'll speak to both separately. The proposed red line draft plan would look to effectively eliminate the semi-detached blocks and instead put in place townhouse blocks. The subdivision already contains at the draft approval through the draft approval process a number of towns, semis, singles, but the market demand appears to be for singles and towns, not much interest for semis. So the request is to keep the same layout, but instead of where there would be semi-detached, there would now be townhouse blocks instead. This would not result in any changes necessary for zoning, no changes to road network. The overall functioning of the subdivision would not change, and staff are supportive of the request given that it's based on market demand. There would also be a very minor adjustment to the size of the southerly stormwater facility and the adjacent parkland. So the parkland would slightly reduce in size because the stormwater pond needs to be a little bit larger than initially estimated during the draft approval process. The pond design has been undertaken, and additional offsite drainage area has been included in that pond area. So the pond has enlarged very slightly. However, there is provision for creating effectively a walking path all the way around that facility. So it would ultimately result in effectively an extension of that parkland. So we would still be getting the minimum parkland that was anticipated during the draft approval stage for active parkland, but there would also be a multitude of passive parkland to the north of that storm facility as well, where there would be opportunity for trail networks and other facilities that the municipality may wish to install there. Regarding the pre-servicing request, so phase 1 would include a new internal road network at the northerly end of the development site off of Champlain Street, as well as a new road slightly south of the intersection of Champlain and Old Hamburg Road, with another internal road off of that road internal to the subdivision. This phase would see approximately 130 units, and our review has gone through a number of technical review cycles. And what we've done, and what the developer has chosen to do actually, which staff are happy to see, was the entire subdivision's engineering design was undertaken all at once. And what they're planning to do is to develop the entire subdivision on a phase-by-phase basis. But what that entire design and review allowed us to do was to get a really fulsome view on the overall functionality of the subdivision all at once, rather than on a piecemeal basis. So we were encouraged to see that. This phase would also see water main coming from the from the water tank at the top of the public works yard, down across County Road 2, down Old Hamburg Road, internal to the site. But there would also be the extension of the water main more or less all the way down I'll call it the front, most of the frontage on Old Hamburg Road to provide good water looping throughout the site. We would be collecting a number of securities for these works under the pre-servicing agreement, with the acknowledgement that this is not our infrastructure yet. This is internal to the site. The subdivision has not been approved. The lots have not been created. Road allowances have not been created. So all of the works to be undertaken on the site would not yet be owned by the municipality. Further to this, given the, I'll say the sensitivity that staff have to hydrogeological concerns and existing wells in the area, we made the proponent very well aware that we would be looking at this in great detail during the review. So hydrogeological reviews were undertaken, and ultimately the findings were that there are no negative impacts on adjacent properties anticipated from the installation of the infrastructure or the ultimate development of the subdivision. The groundwater generally flows from east to west, and there were two found water-bearing zones, one more shallow than the other. One's very deep, and deeper than the other, rather, and it contains, I'll say, the good high-flowing water, and the infrastructure is going to be well above that water-bearing zone. Additionally, to avoid any potential preferential flow of groundwater, clay plugs would be installed throughout trenches within the subdivision and off-site. So effectively what that is, as the trench is opened up to lay pipework, periodically along the length of it would be just essentially a wall of clay, so that if groundwater got in there, it's not going to follow that path and effectively drain the area. So it really would just get in there and stop and not go anywhere and not deplete any aquifers in the vicinity. A monitoring and response plan will be developed and sent to the MECP. So if by some chance there is a potential impact to a neighbor's well, there's a response plan to be developed, which will be provided to the municipality and the ministry, such that if an owner finds that there is an impact to their well, it would be proven through ongoing monitoring and testing of water, both quality and quantity. So a number of wells in the area will be effectively continuously monitored throughout the construction process. And if there is I'll say a depletion of water or an impact to the quality, the developer is responsible to rectify any issues related to that. With the installation of new water mains along Old Hamburg Road, that would provide a good opportunity for the developer to provide a service connection to municipal water if the resident were to choose such. But again, we're not anticipating any impacts to wells given the hydrogeological review and the mitigation measures that we're planning. Lastly, insurance coverage will be provided and the municipality will be named. So this would also cover, I'll say, issues that may result related to potential impacts to wells. So if there are issues resulting, then there will be insurance coverage to cover costs associated with that. So ultimately, staff are supportive of both the red line draft plan and the pre-servicing request. Undertaking or executing rather a pre-servicing agreement would allow the developer to proceed expeditiously without having to outlay as much capital in the form of securities, as these assets are not yet owned by the municipality. It gives them more opportunity to get in there, get the work done. And then when the subdivision is ultimately approved, the lots are registered and able to be sold. Any outstanding works will then be collected and held as security at 100% rate for the municipality to protect our interests. So with all that being said, it was a lengthy report, but I just wanted to hit on those high points. And if there's any questions of council, I'd be happy to answer those.
Thank you, Michael. Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. Michael, monitoring of wells. How are the wells that are going to be monitored continuously selected? That's my first question. The second question is related to the insurance where the municipality is named. If someone's well goes dry and there's no, this of course is worst case scenario, but there is an insurance policy, how is that rectified? Like, you can't put water back where water was. So is it a case of that homeowner may have to be tied into the municipal system and the insurance policy is going to be large enough to cover that cost for one, or heaven forbid, 10 residents? So those are my two questions. Thank you.
Sure. Through your worship, yes. So regarding the first question, I would say willing landowners. Hopefully, there's some willing landowners to let the developer's consultant team monitor their wells. It would be based on, I'll say, the recommendation of the hydrogeological experts, so the hydrogeologist and our peer review consultant, to best determine which specific wells would most likely be impacted by infrastructure. Some are dug, some are drilled, some are close, some are far. So it's going to be a kind of a combination of that and landowners that are willing. But they'll be continuously monitored while the works are ongoing in the vicinity of that. There could be a potential where during the excavation, they encounter groundwater and they need to pump it out. In that case, they'll need a permit to take water from the ministry. So the ministry is going to be involved as well, and they also deal with well interference claims. So if there's an issue, the ministry becomes involved and ultimately says, "Thou shalt do X to rectify an issue." But we're getting ahead of that with the monitoring and the response plan to be prepared if that worst case scenario were to occur. Hopefully that answers the first question. Regarding the second question, the coverage to be provided is $5 million. So that would cover anything from well interference to potential damage to municipal property, private property, injury, death, that sort of thing. It's a blanket coverage up to that $5 million mark. We've never had to enact it. I don't anticipate we need to. If there is an issue with well interference, that's going to be well enough to cover the anticipated cost of installing a service line and connecting an individual.
Thank you.
Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, Michael. Thank you very much for the 588-page report. It was a great read. Thank you. My question is just on the, first of all, you answered a lot of questions in your presentation. Thank you very much for that. On the townhouses, these are the back-to-back townhouses that we're speaking of?
Through your worship, no, these would be freehold street front. The back-to-backs would be in I'll say the most northwesterly corner of the development site on one block. So that would likely become a condominiumized block under a future plan of condominium. So the change from semis to townhouses would be your typical townhouse with a front yard and a backyard.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Pennell. Deputy Mayor Calvert.
Yeah, completely unrelated, but Dollar Crescent, is that subdivision, is that all on well and septic, or is it on?
It's through your worship. It's all well and septic. Yes.
Oh, is it? Okay. Yeah, because I was just looking at the number of houses there and I thought it wasn't too bad till I see that. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Deputy Mayor Calvert. Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. Sorry, I forgot to ask you. And just for clarification, because we have heard this question before, is that up to now, all of the studies and all the infrastructure is going to be going in the ground is all going to be developer payment, right? The town has $0 invested?
Through your worship, that's correct. Though I'll say the size of the water main coming from the tank down Old Hamburg Road is slightly above the threshold size that would be covered under development charges. So I'll explain it like this. Our local service policy in our development charge background study essentially says where there are off-site infrastructure improvements required, so meaning extension of water mains or sewer, et cetera, up to a certain size of pipe will be fully developer borne. The size of pipe coming from the tank into the booster pump station, or essentially right beside the tank, is 450 millimeters. Then it tapers down to 350 millimeters and then down to 300. So there's a portion of that that's over the threshold number in our policy, which is 300. So whenever there's a pipe size above that, then there would be development charge credits applied, where essentially a developer is putting in, I'll say, like a trunk main, which would provide service to other lands. So there would be some we still need to figure out exactly what the dollar values are there, but there won't be any monies coming out of pocket. There would just be credits applied down the road. So there's no budgetary implication as a result of this. I hope that makes sense, but I'm going to come back with a further report when we iron out those details later on.
No, it does make sense. Thank you. And also with that size, then that'd be also providing capacity if that loop line ever needs to be extended past, say, Switzerville or something like that.
Through your worship, that would be the intent. So we're trying to future-proof the area as much as we can. And having the development charge credit ability is good because it incentivizes the developer to put in that pipe size that we could foresee building off of, but it doesn't cost us any money up front effectively.
Great, thank you.
Great, thanks, Councillor Pennell. Is there anything further? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, Michael, was that always intended to come from the water tower? Weren't they intending to go under the train tracks at one time to hook up to the service? Or is that just the sewer?
Through your worship, both. So it was always intended to have the primary feed come from the hill, let's say, down into the site along Old Hamburg Road. But there's will be a secondary connection under the CN rail line. One for sanitary sewer. All the sanitary is going to exit there, but there will be a secondary water line connection to provide redundancy into the subdivision in case there's an issue upstream towards the tank. This would provide redundancy throughout the site.
Okay, that makes sense. And I have to confess, I didn't read all the drier points of your 588-page report. Usually I get through the weekend doing the reports, and then I still had yours to do on Monday. So I have to confess I didn't do it all. Thanks, though. That's a very good report.
Through your worship, I wanted to provide everything for council and for the public. At that point, too, I wanted to provide the hydrogeological report for the public to be able to view and see all of the design drawings, just get it out there so that anybody that has an interest, they can find the information.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Martin. And then thanks, Michael. Is there anything else anyone would like to make any comment about? Seeing none, it's exciting to see needless to say, challenging site develop. So obviously, anytime we can attract and have new residences built in our municipality, I think it's going to be an exciting time. So thank you for the work you've done on this. We do have a recommendation that council receive for information the Growth and Development PL SUB F 2023-062 Springside Meadows Red Line Draft Plan and Phase 1 Pre-Servicing Report, and further that council approve the Red Line Draft Plan of subdivision revision date of December 7, 2023, and further that council authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute the pre-servicing agreement on behalf of the municipality. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Plow trucks purchase. And who's speaking to that? Oh, I see Ms. Hamill coming up and Mr. Cuthell. Yeah, whenever you're ready. I'm not sure who's going to start, but whoever wants to start, you're more than welcome to.
Thank you, Your Worship, members council. Now, Ellen and I sit in front of you here, and we have prepared a slide deck to walk us through the purchase report for 2 tandem plow trucks. Got it. Perfect. Give it a test drive here. Where do we point? Oh. Perfect. Got it. Okay. So Ellen and I will take some turns here and we'll try and walk through the report. If council or anyone have any questions, feel free to interrupt us, or we can answer on the fly or save them to the end. So an overview, started off an overview of our Greater Napanee winter maintenance program and the kilometers of roads that we maintain. The total kilometer of maintained roads within our municipality's winter maintenance program is 450 kilometers of roads, combined of 290 kilometers of municipally owned roads and 160 kilometers of county-owned roads. Current industry standards based on surrounding municipalities and looking a little farther than that as well is around 40 kilometers of roads per plow route. With that industry standard, the calculation works out to approximately 11.25 trucks to be in service within the town of Greater Napanese winter maintained roads. Different criteria that go into making up these established plow routes is minimum maintenance legislative requirements regarding response time, truck capacity to carry enough winter materials, abrasives and salts, efficient cycle times, and stay within legislated hours of work for the plow operators. The next slide depicts the minimum maintenance standard response times based on classification of roads. Fortunately, we do not have any class 1 roads that we need to maintain. That would be a Highway 401. Though we do have the remaining class of roads that our staff maintain. The class 2s, your county roads, down to your rural and urban, less densified streets. Within this, it just identifies, based on the classification of road, the amount of response time hours you have to respond to that classification of roads to reduce that snowfall accumulation down to acceptable limits. The different interventions in this is just plowing, salting, applying abrasive materials, or any other chemical or organic agents to the roadway. Staff put together on this slide just a winter maintenance cycle time scenario, and I do apologize. It's hard to see, even for myself without bringing my glasses this evening. Though this winter maintenance scenario put into a best case scenario, something if we ever have a snowfall in the wintertime, every one of our plow operators would probably like to see this one. And then your minds can just take you on if we were adding concurrent storms, wind blowing, ice formations or ice storms on top of this. But a storm scenario in this scenario is snowfall starts at 10 o'clock p.m. at night and snows until 4 a.m. in the morning with an accumulation of 12.5 to 6 inches of snow accumulation. For this type of event, our crews, it would take typically 12 hours for us to complete the full cleanup cycle of this storm event. And that would account for 92% of our allowable driving hours through the legislative hours of work. Typical snow removal procedures would include plow operator coming in, completing truck inspections and loading of winter materials. Then procedures for plowing the roads would include first pass, bearing the center line driving surface of the road and applying winter abrasives or salts. Second pass would include the snow removal after the materials had a chance to work. It's otherwise known as slushing off. You got your wheel pack areas and whatnot, and after that winter materials had a chance to work in there, drivers would go by and ensure they bear that driving surface or road. And then the third pass would include pushing back of your banks and exposing your shoulders of your road, giving some allowable snow drift area. And then just the bottom of the slide highlights that would be a perfect scenario, but other challenges that are faced would be cycling back to the higher class roads for concurrent storm events, wind, ice formation, or ice storms. Just highlighting on the next slide is just some winter maintenance challenges. As we have mentioned before, hours of service legislation is one, and it just highlights a driver must have 10 hours of off time duty in a day and cannot drive more than 13 hours in a day. Cannot drive after 14 hours of on duty in a day. And with a note of that, the only way around this would be if the municipality declared a state of emergency would be the only time a driver would be permitted to drive more than 13 hours in a 24-hour period. Equipment maintenance. 40% of our vehicles are being greater than 14 years old. Equipment breakdowns are now routine. Equipment downtime. Typically at least one truck per winter event due to age and condition of our fleet. The inability to rent a snowplow. We in the past, like 3 or 4 years ago, we were in the situation where we did need to rent a snowplow, and they're just not on the rental service docket, especially when you need them. They're not sitting on the lot for rent. And through a mutual aid agreement, we were able to get one from a neighboring municipality. Which leads into the next one, reliance on mutual aid with neighboring municipalities. It is a year-round thing. And we do heavily rely on it at times. And the last is maintaining plow routes based on in-service trucks. It affects response times and could relate in unsatisfied taxpayers. The next slide just shows a 5-year shot of our equipment maintenance costs are increasing with our aging fleet, and it just highlights that in a graph form. The next 2 slides will just show a picture of the trucks that were slated for the replacement if council so wish to go with the purchase of the 2 trucks identified in the report. One would be a 2007 Sterling tandem dump truck. Just with the age of this truck, there's extensive corrosion on the box body of the truck. The conveyor systems show great detail of rot. There is no pre-wet system on this truck, which is used for asphalt hard surface roads. And it is in our maintenance agreement with the County of Lennox and Addington. So these trucks are not deployed on county roads at this time. Suspension needs repairs. Mechanics are finding it difficult to find replacement parts for the age of this truck. The next truck's a 2011 International Tandem. This truck, unfortunately, it was hoped not to be a truck that was slated for replacement, as we do have a couple other trucks in our fleet that are older than this one. Though the design of a double wall frame on this truck, it's a press frame that during design of the build of the truck was designed to add more durability to the frame. Though with it being in the operating corrosive environment that it does, the salts and everything else get in there and spread it apart. Repair costs that have been talked about for repressing one of these frames from a dealer. A sample was given of a fire truck that was $60,000 to have that frame repressed. So it said you could look at costs upwards to $60,000. That number seems like a number that would be a poor investment into a truck that wouldn't have near that resale value. Twisted frame, there's a twist in the frame the mechanics are trying to address with some suspension modifications. No pre-wet system on this truck either. Suspension repairs required, suspension torque arms. These are just some things that I grabbed from the mechanics as they're talking about what they need to look at these trucks. This truck does have a max force engine in it as well. We did end up selling one with this spring came out of service as it needed extensive repairs that were deemed too costly to invest to keep it as a reserve truck. This truck also has the same engine, and it has had more than average repairs required for the engine of this truck. Now I'm going to pass it over and take a break to Alan.
Thank you. So I can just speak to some of the budget implications of the request that's outlined in the report. Hopefully you recall from our 2024 capital budget, there is a budget line item for one tandem truck in the amount of $430,000, which closely covers the cost of one tandem truck. There is a slight overage coming in at the costings now that we have got more accurate pricing on those. There's about a $12,000 difference. What staff are recommending is that would be funded through the fleet reserve, which we have the capacity to do that in 2024. In addition to the tandem truck that's being requested that was budgeted in 2024, we're also looking for council support to order a secondary truck and get pre-budget approval for 2025 for a truck of equal value. So again, coming in at $442,000, and we're looking for pre-budget approval for that. What I'd like to outline is that the cost of one plow truck is already embedded in our capital budget. So if we were to rebudget the exact same number of dollars into capital, which was around $1 million for our tax supported costs, then there would be no additional levy increase if you're comparing like for like. So what it does do is it will pre-commit where those dollars are going to. So if you're going to commit to this purchase now, then you're having less dollars to spread around if you wanted no tax increase for capital. So I just wanted that council to be clear on how that flows through into our 2025 budget discussions. So it's not necessarily going to increase your tax levy if you wanted to keep a capital levy around $1 million like we had last year, but you are committing your dollars now in advance of the 2025 budget deliberations. We feel both collectively from finance and from infrastructure that this is the right time to do it. The lead times, which Jeff can talk a little bit more if we need to, are quite substantial. Neither one of these trucks will be delivered until 2025. So we will be carrying forward the 2024 budget allocation into 2025. If we leave this decision until 2025, then you're looking at delivery times into 2026. If you can just switch to the next slide, I'll move on here. Unless there's any questions on that slide specifically. So staff recognize that there has been some work done on fleet management and fleet replacement, but we do have some work to do. And we just wanted to give you kind of what an overview of what this will look like. We do not have a full replacement policy or full fleet replacement schedule that we are currently operating on, but it is something that staff strive to work to and will commit to doing that prior to the 2025 budget cycle. What this illustrates is how important our commitment is year over year. So this is only looking at a snapshot of heavy fleet for winter maintenance only. That's the only fleet that's included in this. So it's just a snapshot of a portion of all of the fleet that we have. But for example, if you were to commit similar budget dollars towards heavy fleet each year, around $430,000, and ongoing reserve contributions. Currently, we have $300,000 going to fleet reserves. If we used a portion of that towards heavy fleet, just for an example of $100,000 is what's outlined in this illustration, you'll see that year over year in this 14-year plan, which is the life cycle that we have on our heavy fleet, that we can maintain the fleet that we have, provided that we continually invest into these assets. As we know, they are costly and the costs will continue to rise. So it's important that we're setting dollars aside each year to make sure that we're keeping up on the assets that we do have. Just to note, if we were to expand any of our fleet, we do have some capacity in our DC background study. If we were to have to increase the number of heavy fleet that we have for winter maintenance due to growth, some of that can be covered through DCs. It's not reflected in here, but in a full replacement schedule, we would look to other sources of funding for expanding our fleet.
And that takes us in the next steps. As Ellen has mentioned, staff do plan to present a full fleet replacement rationalization plan to council prior to the 2025 budget discussions. Advantages of a fleet rationalization and replacement plan. They'll identify the cycle. They'll identify the replacement cycle based on the years and hours of service per fleet and per piece of equipment. establish long-term financial strategies. They'll take into consideration manufacturer lead times. So we'll reduce the time waiting for fleet. As Ellen touched on, these trucks are identified in the report as well as being 1 to 1.5 years of lead time to get them in and be ready for in-service. If these trucks were ordered when the order bank opens up in August, we would expect to see these trucks arrive end of first quarter to mid-year of next year. And then they would be shipped to the body outfitting company. And then hopefully they would be back to us ready for in-service in September of 2025. It would reduce equipment breakdowns and maintenance costs, maintain a stabilized level of service, and reduce reliance on mutual aids. Ellen and I are happy to take any questions that council may have.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Alan. Is there any questions with respect to, we'll start with Deputy Mayor Calver, then we'll continue around the horseshoe.
So I know we approved the one tandem truck to be purchased under the budget. What was the date of that? Like, you can only order them in August? You can't order them prior to that?
Through your worship, no, right now, yes, the order bank is closed for previous year's trucks or for new year model trucks to be built. And through getting staff, were looking at getting onto the canoe procurement process. It's substantial savings we're seeing with reductions for the end user, municipalities and non-for-profits. The procurement program it benefits the buying power of 5,000 plus municipalities and non-for-profit organizations. So this was one thing we did wait for to see if we could utilize the financial benefit and savings of utilizing that program. Plus, it just through after budget deliberations and every budget was passed, this is the time that by the time we went through the extensive process, the documents for a chassis and body box setup and looking at all the different options it took this time.
Okay, and then how much do we have in our fleet reserve right now?
Through your worship, if we include the contribution of 2024s, we're about $395,000 in that. There was about 95 that was in there previously, and then we have the annual contribution that we made in 2024.
Okay, and where are we at with our DC funds? What kind of dollars we're looking at in there?
I'm sorry, I don't have those off the top of my head, but I can certainly get those to council.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
This purchase is not being funded through DCs.
I thought the one for 2025 might be, I thought I heard DC charges there.
No, it would just be because we're replacing our existing fleet. That's not a DCable cost. We do in our background study have one additional plow truck further down the line, not in 2025 or in the near future. It's just when we would be required based on the growth that we've experienced that we would need to increase our fleet levels. Currently, we're not increasing. We're just replacing our old assets.
Okay, and there's one other question for Jeff. Before, Jeff, you were talking about triaxles, and now you're talking tandem, right?
That's correct, through your worship. During the 2024 budget deliberations, we had identified that we would like to put in our fleet a triaxle truck. We did some extensive looking at that. We do have 2 plow routes that a triaxle truck could be utilized on to give it redundancy, as well as it would be more beneficial for snow removal as well as capital works in the summertime. So it'd be a 12-month benefit. With the state we're in right now, with the aging demographic of our trucks, we don't feel we have a reliable enough fleet to go there. We need to be able to have trucks we can put anywhere right now and adapt to any situation we might see. So not at this time, staff do not recommend going with the triaxle truck.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Calvert. Councillor Hicks.
Through you, your worship. Thanks for the report and the slideshow. Jeff, just to reiterate, the information. With no pre-wet capabilities on both of the aging tandems that we have right now sitting on the hill, we are not able to put those trucks in service anywhere on a county road because the county roads, our contract with the county dictates that we have to do the pre-wet, correct?
That's correct. They do dictate we must do pre-wet. Also, pre-wet is a proven cost-effective measure for applying winter materials and their effectiveness of the reaction of them. There's a 75% greater adherence of the material onto the road, and the material is activated as soon as it comes out of the truck, and it works as soon as it hits the road surface. So yes, it's a greater, it gives more benefit and safety and lower chemical disbursement and salts.
Man.
Go ahead, Ange.
And so in utilizing the pre-wet on all roads, you're reducing, in effect, you're reducing the amount of granular, whether it's salt, sand combination, et cetera, because you're not having to go over it again because it's actually sticking. Okay. And then my next question was your first slide. Oh, and of course I have this blown up because even though I wear glasses, I still can't see. 1 second. You indicated that you would start in a storm event at 4 a.m., just in that example, which would involve the mechanics being on site at 4 a.m. just to ensure that everything is running correctly. So you call in both mechanics at 4 a.m. for a storm situation, or are they only called when one of the trucks breaks down, which there's probably a 90% chance of that happening if I understood the numbers right?
Yes, through your worship, it's becoming a routine event that our mechanics are called in during a storm event. It's not routine for them to be deployed if they're not needed at 4 a.m. We would like to keep them working their normal shift and have them, we know when they're there, but it's becoming a routine basis that they're being called after hours, keep these fleet on the road.
And if I recall, you're sending the mechanics, you're sending the drivers home for rest time in order for them to be able to come back and continue driving to meet, I think it's 11 1/4 hours. Is that their allowable driving hours, a driver?
Yeah, the allowable driving hours in a day is 13 hours they're allowed to drive, but then they have to be off for 10 hours of rest time. It takes Mr. Dwyer has to get pretty crafty at times on how to jockey drivers around and we only have enough staff for each identified piece of fleet that's in here. We have one staff member for them routes. So we don't have a lot of, we have to really, he has to cross-reference between response times, level of snow, concurrent storms and wind. And there's a lot that goes into trying to manage a reduced number of staff. And if you add in mechanical failures on that too, sometimes I think I can hear them from my office.
Understood. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hicks. Go ahead, Councillor Shank, and then we'll go to Councillor Pennell.
Okay, here we go. So this is my dilemma. It's all about the money. All right. Nothing personal. Don't get me wrong, guys. But yes, there's a need to replace this trucks. We have an aged fleet. I totally agree. You got to have good operating equipment, the whole 9 yards. But 5 months ago, we just finished doing a budget. At that time, you needed one. Of course, there's a wish list to have another one. I'd like to see where the maintenance records were that I had asked, you know what I mean? Like when you have 2 mechanics now that are working on those vehicles, show the cost. But 160 kilometers of our roads are done for the county. So there was a report and you're filling out the citywide, because we were discussing that and citywide or a different thing of what it's actually costing, because when almost close to 40% of our roads that we're doing with the county, and now we're asking for another $442,000, which I'm not saying that we don't need. We definitely need another truck. But I'm saying we have a fleet management, and if we didn't put that $300,000 last year, we wouldn't even been in the picture. And last year, when we paid in our last budget, did not that $442,000 come from DC funding to pay for that?
Through your worship, just to clarify, the $420,000 that was budgeted for the
Yeah.
one tandem, no,
Yeah.
that was a tax base.
That was a tax base?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the reason why I love to ask these, just so I can have the facts correctly. But number one is when, I'm not gonna say yes or no right now. I'd like to go ahead and get some more information, how we're gonna fund it. All right, so number one, give me the maintenance records that you should be having on all your vehicles now. All right, and I asked a year ago when the previous CAO, there was a big contentions about, you know, whether we're getting paid enough or whether we're not getting paid from enough to the county. All right, and those citywide, are we getting our fair share? All right, because we have to come up now as a municipality, 442,000. And last year we put $1 million in, so we're 500 and some odd thousand dollars that we have for capital next year if we pre-buy this. So just grant me, I myself, I don't want to make a decision right tonight on the extra one. We've already got the approval on the one, but the extra one, I think we have a meeting on August 12th. If we could go ahead and have some of that information for the August 12th or whatever meeting, whatever time it is in the near future. All right, so we can have some of that extra information and find out other different avenues that we might be able to go to finance this, so we're not handcuffing next year's budget. You know what I mean? Because I know we have tons of roads, because what you've said, Jeff, you know, how much more we need for gravel. You know what I mean? I've asked maybe if we could go ahead and did they ever look at having our own gravel supply, like with the limestone, you know what I mean? Have our own aggregate that we might need, just a way to save costs that we can stretch that dollar that much further, because we can't just put it always on the taxpayers, what we're gonna do. And 1% tax increase is only 140,000. So all I'm saying is just grant me a little bit of time. If you get me some more information, or we can be a little bit creative to find out where we can get that extra money from. And if we can get that information, then it'd be a lot easier for me to say, yeah, away we go.
Thanks, Councillor Shank. I think Councillor Pennell had a question, then we'll go to Councillor Hicks.
Would you like me to respond?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Jeff, sorry.
Yeah, there was a couple questions in there I'd just like to respond to. So the maintenance, a list of maintenance items on the repair trucks, that was a really good recommendation made during budget deliberations, and we have taken that and we've made a change to the way we track all the maintenance done in our trucks. Every truck has a maintenance line item to it, and the life cycle costs will be tracked to each truck. That's going to be beneficial for 5 years, 10 years down the road over a life cycle of a truck. But I just want to reiterate to council right tonight here during this presentation that these are two trucks that the proof's in the pudding, they've reached their age. We're talking about a 2007 truck that previous through fleet rationalization plans was identified for a 14-year life cycle. New industry standards, most people are replacing trucks, tandems on a 10-year cycle. And where we have been in the past and where we are this year now is trucks are going out as less than scrap value because they're used up. And just I would like to highlight in the report tonight that during budget deliberations, we did identify 3 trucks for replacement. Then we came back, we pared it down, we said, look, and during budget, we talked, and I'll tell you tonight that I don't want to see us buying more than 1 truck a year on a plan. And this plan here puts a truck in 2024, truck in 2025. I don't like it that we're ordering 2 model years in 1 year, but the need is there. I just want to reiterate the cost that we may have to put into that truck to keep it running with that 2-ply frame. We're going to be investing money in the truck that we're never going to see come back. So the plan here, Ellen has showed a financial plan that shows that the feasibility of this through senior leadership teams. We have wrote council reports that this is a paramount purchase. This is an activity that protects our core infrastructure, protects us from litigation. I got passionate with you on this, but I wanted these notes to be seen. We staff wholeheartedly believe that the way your recommendation for tracking maintenance on a truck, those reports can be printed anytime. You're only going to see this summer. But the proof is that these trucks are shook. They're wore out, and we have qualified operators and mechanics that are reporting this. And I'm just bringing it forth to council.
Thanks. Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
I totally agree with you, Jeff. My problem is we used to have a lot of money, but we don't have a whole lot of money. And there's only so much money, but we got $70 million. We got to go ahead so you can flush the toilet in this town. So my problem is there is a major need that we have another snowplow because you can't go ahead and drive down the road if you have a broken down truck. I totally agree with you. But all I'm saying is if you could grant me just a couple of weeks to figure out and let me just, I personally, I'm not going to make a decision tonight because I have to go ahead and do some pondering. I'm not saying no to you by any means, Jeff, but I'm trying to figure out, is there any other possible way that we can go ahead and fund this a different way, or from what can we do, what we can't do? That's all I'm saying, Jeff. So all I'm saying is that there's only so much money in the kitty, and we can't always go back to the taxpayer and say, hey, you know what, we're going to hammer you for some more. Because you take a look of an average of the last 10 years, what an average increase has been, all right, on an average taxpayer, it comes to a certain level that, you know, there's only so much money in the pot. So I know you agree with me. It's just, you just grant me a couple of weeks here.
Thanks, Councillor Shank. Go ahead, Mr. Grant.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. Just to clarify, Councillor Shank, you had indicated that you wanted additional information. I just wanted to get some clarity. Is there anything specific that you would like us to put together, or is that something we can take offline if you'd like to give it some thought?
This is the additional information is because like in any business is where can we save in this municipality, where we can't save in this municipality. It's running in as efficient as possible. All right. So all I'm saying is I have to come up with, or not I, we as council have to come up with $442,000. All right. Our roads department needs another snowplow so they can clean the roads. So what my dilemma is where are we going to come up with $442,000 without going into next year's budget? All right. When we're in July in the 7th month of 2024, and we're already spending money in 2025. Sure, it's not going to affect the same levy, but what happens if you have fire department, one of their trucks goes down? What happens? Where's there? Because it's not like you have a big ton of reserves. So therefore, all I'm saying is give me a little bit of latitude to see what I can possibly do, what I can't do, and what we can do and what we can't do. It needs further discussion. And so that's all I'm saying.
Thanks, Councillor Shank, and maybe you can answer this question, Jeff. What's the timetable ordering this thing? I know we've heard that August is when we need to order these things. Is it just the month of August? Is it 3 weeks in August? Is it what type of timetable are we on?
I did put a request out to see, so the ordering window opens up in August, so we'll have time to order beyond that. What I did ask for clarification, I do not have on that, is if we're late in, does that would just put our receiving time down the road. So no, we don't have to order this truck. There's no doom and gloom that this truck has to be approved tonight to be ordered, but it's going to be beneficial to have this truck in service for the 2025-6 winter season. And just to highlight this, so council has this awareness as well, is within this report, there was a 5-year replacement table put in there, and it does identify a truck a year. And at the back end of that 5-year window, well, let's go through the years first. We're asking, due to the mechanic inabilities of these trucks, and they're wore out due to age and mechanical failures. It's a 2007 truck, looking at this year with the budgeted dollars. A 2011 truck, that's mostly due to the design of the truck and the amount of dollars to put in that truck if we can keep it on the road. Well, during the 2024 budget deliberations, this next truck, 2002, identified for replacement in 2026, which staff would be coming forth to council next summer season or next year and asking for pre-approval of the 2026 budget dollars to have that truck ordered to come in with 18-month lead time. 18-month build time has been a standard since probably since I've started going to some meetings in probably 2018, this is not a new request of staff. And as I've seen council, we always ask to order a truck the year in advance. So that would be replacing a 2002 truck. In 2027, we'd be asking to replace a 2009 truck. That's, do the math on that, that's 19 years old. And we'd be looking to get that replaced. And then hopefully in 2028, we would be back to our previously identified replacement cycle of replacing a tandem truck in a 14-year life cycle. So it's a 5-year plan to get us righted up. And it's a paramount activity that we offer for our community.
So Jeff, here's a prime example. This is the way I do it. If you go ahead and let's say you have 14 trucks, all right? And you want to go ahead and replace them every, let's say every 10 years or whatever, or every 14 years, all right? You got to buy a new truck every year. So guess what you got to budget for? Buy a new truck every year. So you have a new truck coming in. So therefore, at the end of the 14 years, you're always getting a new truck to keep your fleet up to date. But that hasn't been done. So the problem is now we're going to play catch up. And at the same time, I got to find out how we're going to pay for it. So it's not like I'm arguing with you and saying I'm disagreeing with you. It's just that our fleet rationalization, we have to go ahead and do a hard look of what we're going to do to keep this existing.
Thanks, Councillor Shank. And I think, and I appreciate, Jeff, that I know we're having a difficult time trying to make a decision tonight because it's a big decision. And I think if we have the time, and we do have another meeting at the end of August, which I think would be probably the most appropriate one, that'll give staff 4 weeks to come up with some sort of a financing plan, I guess, just to give us an idea. I know there's somewhat of one there now, but I think we're going to need some time to mull this over. At least that's what I'm gathering from Councillor Shank. There's no doubt that we need a fleet rationalization plan, and I don't know if Mr. Grant wants to comment on that, and what timetable are we looking for that?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have a timetable, but I can expressly discuss a need. So I think one of the things that I've heard from council members this evening, and I agree with you, is sort of a long-term fleet maintenance and replacement policy that actually lists all vehicles, whether it be snow plows, whether it be fire trucks. Council's not necessarily making a decision on one vehicle in one area of business, but can see the complete picture. And things coming with a more fulsome business case, inclusive of different records that we're able to map out. And so, and I think this speaks to the point that you might have been making, Councillor Shank, which is, okay, like we have a need here, but how does this balance up against the other needs of the municipality? So we can make a decision on a specific piece of equipment in the context of all other lines of business that we're doing, so we can assess the greatest need. That's going to be a longer term exercise inclusive of aligning the way that fleet is managed within the municipality, inclusive of data, and inclusive of business cases that would come forward in each individual area so they can be measured against one another. I think a common timeline and deadline for when vehicles come forward would also be appropriate. That isn't in place today, but that is what senior leadership is discussing. I think that would allow council to make decisions based on the needs of the municipality more broadly. That is a need that's identified, and it's not a capacity we have today.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
Through you, your worship, I would like to have a better understanding of canoe procurement and the order window of August. So correct me if I get this wrong, the best bang for our buck is to get in the queue as early as possible in August, along with the other 5,000 municipalities that may possibly be ordering truck chassis and bodies to be delivered in 2025. In order to get that, you need to be in the queue. Now, they may not all be identical to ours, but the more the manufacturer is making at one time, because quantity dictates a lower price. Is that the reasoning for August? And is August, I look to Madam Clerk, August 27th is the final meeting in August? Well, that's pretty close to September. So is that going to have an impact, and is that going to put us into 2026 for delivery? Possibly, if everybody else is in ahead of us.
Yeah. Through your
For,
worship.
for both trucks, both the
Yeah.
one that's, so are we going to get in on August for the one that's already approved immediately with the other one to follow? And that was the second part of my question. Thank you.
Yeah, and I wish I had the answer for that. Just the order window opens up in August for the next model year truck. And there's a bunch of benefits to getting the next model year. This model year is completely sold out. So there's for this particular truck. There are other options of trucks that can come in, but this truck is the best price truck. Plus it's a newer model year, new design, and a better value down the road. Yeah, the council has options. Obviously, there was one truck budgeted for in the 2024 budget. We were just asking for the pre-approval. Council could approve to award the purchase of the one truck. There is the value added quantity-based savings is they weren't going to give it to us. Both people, it was a question that they checky box off and is there a value added to order a larger number of 2 trucks? And both said that proponents that bid this 5 or greater is where you're going to see your benefit. So $1,000 savings for the lowest bidder is what's identified. So $2,000 in savings if we order both trucks. So council could choose for us to put one order in that could be explored, and then with another order down the road or whatnot. Yeah, it was looking at the 5-year plan and the state we're in today to try and get righted up. And the order lead times, we can't make a decision next year to get next year's truck next year.
Thanks. Go ahead, Councilor. I got to get to Councilor Purnell, but go ahead, Councilor Hicks.
Just one further question. The next item on the agenda is addressing the sidewalk plow. And if I'm not mistaken, that $300,000 that was originally allocated for the sidewalk machine was strictly development charges due to, okay, thank you. I just wanted to make that clear in my own mind. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Go ahead, Councilor Purnell.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, Jeff. I remember when we were going through the budget deliberations for this year and your ask for multiple trucks. There was also an ask for a grader and some other equipment. So I have reservations of putting ourselves in the hole right out of the gate for next year. My thoughts are, okay, so we already have a pre-approved amount now for one truck. And then if we give you the go ahead, those funds are going to come out of the 2025 budget. My fear is what else are you going to come to us with? Because we're already, that's going to be $450,000 for your department alone. So I'm just wondering, what else do you have on the books that you're going to be coming and asking us for that might be perceived to us like, we really got to replace this. And here's our opportunity, maybe not to replace a truck right now, but maybe to replace that grader that really needs to be done. So that's my problem on that, because I did see that in the report. And my concerns are, we give you this go ahead of the year, and yet we have a case study that we really need to replace this other $1 million or $500,000 piece of equipment.
It's a great question, Councilor Purnell. I just want to reiterate that, or let council know that this decision went through great debate with the whole infrastructure team and and all of SLT. What I would just like to reiterate that I think I said in the presentation, hopefully addressed in the report. All of our other, there is a lot of other pieces of equipment that need to be replaced, and we could have a business case and a case study to replace it. Why we come here tonight with the 2 trucks and this plan is because, to go back to that statement, these trucks aren't rentable. you don't see them on a lot to be rented. Our grader, if we don't have a grader and it breaks down, council could say, well, that has to go into a financial plan and go down the road. But the issue we could get ourselves in here, if we don't have trucks that can go on the road, we're not renting them. And when we only have so many staff to run the trucks we have, we toy with the meeting, we meet the minimum maintenance standards and we're capable of doing it with the fleet we have. But having 5 trucks that are and majority of our fleet were 14 years old, there's a concern identified by staff, and we just would feel we weren't doing our due diligence to bring this and make council aware of the state of the age of the equipment and demographic of the equipment. And so every piece of equipment, I'll look for a nod over my shoulder. They're unique, but rentable. Sidewalk machine is the same thing. They're not very easily rented, but we can usually come up with a skid steer or something, and we have complaining people deploying improper pieces of equipment. But a plow truck, it's challenging. It's challenging to find a rental.
Thank you. And just one more question for you. In reading your report, I see that there's an LAS discount of $92,000. You were talking earlier about multi-discount for purchasing trucks. Can you just explain to us in the general public of why we're getting that discount?
So the discounts that we see within this procurement process, like I mentioned, utilizing it's sourced well in the States, and then as adapted over to Canada, there's 5,000 plus municipalities and non-for-profit organizations. This is a program that does not cost. It's ran through AMO and an LAS that does not cost the municipality money to use. You'll see within the report, the RFP is attached, contracts attached, scoring matrix attached. These are tenders that are put out at large and with the buying power behind them, that they know that these 5,000 plus municipalities will be utilizing this service. So you get pretty good discounts. So they're based on the discounts off of MSRP, manufacturer discounts, that the municipality would gain the financial benefit from using this platform.
Okay, thank you. So just, sorry, back to my original question. Do you foresee anything that you're going to be asking us for in addition to this right now?
I'm sure to tell you that through a fleet replacement rationalization plan, we're going to turn over and identify multiple pieces of equipment that has passed its service life. For our department, what I will reiterate is that, and I will look back and get it for myself, that again, these are pieces of equipment that we're not going to go in the middle of winter time off a lot and get to rent. But I'll tell you now as well that every other piece of heavy equipment, everything else we have, if it was to disintegrate, break down tomorrow, there's contractors out there with it that we could rent them. That is the paramount part of this decision, that we have to know that lead times are 1.5 years. If a truck goes in the ditch, we experienced another 2022 storm event. And there was a time when we had a fleet of equipment going down the road, plowing our way down there to hook onto trucks that are in ditches. We had 3 trucks in a ditch at one time, and we had crews working. We had other departments from utilities, rec, everyone else, all pitching in. What can I do to help out and get us righted up? And we had guys going by all hours of the night and pulling trucks out of the ditch, make sure they're in service. Guys go home and get a rest and come back in. That happens.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Purnell. Councillor Hicks.
Again, for my own benefit and those listening through you, your worship, this is winter fleet, but only because it's got a plow and a wing on it. As soon as they're dropped in April, that truck is used all summer long. So it's not just used in the winter, it's used year round. That's my first question. And now I've lost the second part. So sorry. I can't remember what the rest of my question was. Oh, the great mutual aid. That's what it was. How close are we to wearing out our welcome on mutual aid? Because I know that this is a very integral part of the municipality's relationship with the surrounding area. And are we burning bridges by consistently asking to borrow or use other municipalities' equipment? And do they have the capability to keep supplying that to us?
I can't fully factually answer that. I hope that our relationships are fostered in a way that will never burn that out, and you hope never to over ask, but we have a good working relationship and a great partnership and good supportive neighbors that we do rely on heavily.
That is a positive to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hicks. Deputy Mayor Calver.
I'd have to agree with Councillor Shank over there. It's a 3% increase on the tax for next year already, a 3%. We just did a 5.89 this year. We need some time to figure this out to see just where. Jeff, I have no doubt. Business I'm in, I know what kind of shape these trucks are in, and I have no doubt we need 2, and you're actually right, we need 5. But we just got to make sure that we're not overextending to our taxpayer as well, because it's a rough world out there right now. It's not getting any easier, so we just need to see where we can come up with this and what we can do with it. Thank you.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Calver. Is there anything else? I'm sensing from the sorry about that, Councillor Martin. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. When I was up on the hill yesterday, Jeff, and looking at that equipment, the trucks, there's no doubt in my mind there's a need there. Absolutely. And you and Mike Dwyer's explanation of what we needed and what the shape it was in, and me looking at that twisted frame on that truck, and with the mechanics there, talking to them, I don't have any doubt in this world that the need is great and the need is there. The only thing we've got to figure out is how are we going to pay for it? And I think, Ellen, it's going to be your task, I think, to come to us at budget time and tell us what we need to do to make sure that we've got the money available every year. We've got to update that fleet for sure. There's no doubt about it. And like I say, I know the need is there. I witnessed it myself. And by the way, I appreciate you two guys doing that for us yesterday. That was good. It showed me a lot more than I can look at, in a point form here. So I appreciated that. But anyway, like I say, I know the need is there. I know what Mike Shank is saying about money. I hate to spend money. I hate to go in debt for anything. We've got to get the corporation in a good physical position, but we got to do everything at the same time somehow. So we all got to get together and figure this out. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Is there anything else? I think what I'm hearing anyways, Jeff, is there's some apprehension, but I'm also hearing that we have a little bit of time, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that we do have maybe, the next 4 weeks or so through to the end of August. I think we're in a position, from what I'm hearing, that we can give the authorization because we've already budgeted for the first truck. So if we can put that one into the hopper, but maybe come back at the end of August. And I know that we're getting close to that budget time. And I think that staff probably already has an idea as to what they're looking for next year. If we, in order to put our minds at ease, if there's any way that over the next 4 weeks that we're able to put some stuff together to say, listen, I think we can do this and this and this and this, and this is what we're probably going to look at this budget year. But if we can just get a little bit more information, I think it might be helpful. And please correct me if I'm wrong, that we're still within that window of availability if we get to the end of August, are we?
Yes, and that is one thing I was hoping. What I would do, propose, is I'll go back, I'll get that answer, and I will update council through email or whatever we can through the CAO. We would update council, and then a decision could be made at that time for any consequences that may be seen for not getting a benefit on that truck, or any additional costs that could be occurred, or if the end of August is a acceptable time for the order of another truck. I'll get those answers and report back to the CAO.
I think that's probably the best at this point. I think we're probably in a position tonight to, and I think you probably want to get the first truck that we've already budgeted for. I think you probably want to get that in the hopper. Am I correct with that?
You're correct. We're in the position we're going to take what we can get and get more reliable fleet in the road.
Why don't we see if we can get that one in the hopper? We'll come back. I'm sure we'll receive some information between now and the 27th of August. We have the ability to come back on the 27th of August with hopefully some more information, which I can appreciate what council's thinking here. It's always unsettling to spend next year's money. And so I think the council just wants to be overly cautious and safe with respect to that. And I can appreciate that, but go ahead, Mr. Grant.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and I think the other thing that we can do, because what else I'm hearing is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think council wants some context as to what else, not only from Director Cuthill, but what other capital asks might be coming. Now, it won't be a definitive list, but I can certainly, we'll raise this at senior leadership tomorrow. We'll check with the rest of the management team. And so council can get a sense of what else might be coming forward from a capital ask during the budget process as best we can. So you're not making a specific decision on an isolated piece of equipment, which need is not in doubt. But you're also getting a sense of what other needs might be coming forward. So you're not making a decision in isolation, and we can pull a list together as best we can. It won't be definitive, but we can at least give you a sense of what else is coming. And I think that's what I pulled out of the conversation this evening.
And I think that would be helpful. And I don't think we'll hold your feet to the fire to say it's absolutely, this is what we're looking for. But I think a little bit more information will probably be better than maybe what we have this evening. So, and Madam Clerk, I'll get you to assist me here. I think if we have nothing further, we'd be looking for a motion to receive from Information Infrastructure Services plow trucks purchase, and further that council approve the ordering of one new plow truck in 2024 with expected delivery in 2025, and to report back to council on the 27th of August with respect to the second plow truck, something similar to that.
So through your worship, we could certainly include that in there. That budget or that truck was approved in the budget, but given the magnitude of dollars, it certainly doesn't hurt to have the approval restated in this motion. And I believe from there you would, based on what I'm hearing on the table, be looking to defer a decision regarding the pre-approval of a second truck to the next regular session meeting of council on August 27th. And further, the council requests staff to bring additional information regarding other anticipated 2025 capital budget requests to that meeting. And if there's any other information to be included in that report.
Yeah, go ahead, Alan.
Thank you, Worship. Just to add to the resolution, if it was council's desire to approve staff's recommendation to fund the additional overage, the $12,000 from the fleet reserve would be beneficial in the motion.
If we could add that, and thank you, Alan. I'd forgotten about that. We get talking the big numbers. I forgot about the little ones. So, Madam Clerk, do you have what you need?
Through your worship, I believe I do, unless there were any other items council wanted to specifically request be included in that report for August 27th.
Is there anything? Go ahead, Councillor Shank. Oh, sorry. Councillor Shank is moving that motion. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Pennell. Is there anything further to the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks, folks. Moving on. Sidewalk machine purchase.
Your Worship and Council, I'm here to take any questions on this report as well. The report regarding the sidewalk machine purchase is brought to council through the 2024-2025 winter season. We had experienced a catastrophic failure of our older machine that was in service, our second sidewalk machine. And in that time, we looked at rental machines to bring in and put in service for that. One we tracked down was in Calgary and was going to be, I believe, about a $8,000 shipment cost plus upwards to, it was going to be around $20,000 with a minimum 2-month rental to put that in our fleet. To give a little bit more context, our complement of sidewalk machines, industry standard again, based on surrounding municipalities is 20 kilometers of sidewalk would justify a machine in a route. We currently have 55 kilometers of sidewalk, but with our staff, we believe we can achieve minimum maintenance standard adherence with the 2 in-service machines. We do also have a skid steer that's used for capital work, and it used to be the second machine for sidewalk clearing that is a backup. The issue with that machine is that it's, as I think you're all well aware of from constituents reaching out, a purpose-built sidewalk machine is of a width to plow the sidewalks. It's 50 inches or whatnot. And then you have the track skid steer that we have is quite a bit bigger. So if we have a machine go down in the middle of winter, deploying that skid steer that's a larger stature in a route that it's already established by our sidewalk machine, this doesn't work. The banks are frozen and established, and it's a real rammy event. Anyway, so last year we had a catastrophic failure in the old machine, and we weren't able to get it back in a safe working order that we would want to have our staff out. So the rental didn't seem like a feasible option. The purpose-built sized skid steer was not available, but reaching out to our counterparts, the city of Kingston stepped up. They had a reserve machine that they were able to rent to us through the mutual aid. It was $1 a month, and we still house that machine at our facility now. And it's identified for sell from the city of Kingston. Our operator liked operating the machine. It's a different model machine. It's a track machine, purpose built for plowing sidewalks. There's no HVAC system in it, so it wouldn't be used for roadside cutting or cutting of our parks and trails in the summertime. A few benefits from purchasing this machine and why staff is bringing this forward. It would reduce the capital outlay at this time. We know that there's a lot of machinery that needs to be replaced. This would reduce the outlay. The dollars for the purchase of this machine would still come from DC charges. And then the remaining dollars allocated for the purchase of a new sidewalk machine would remain in reserve and could buy a new machine at a later date. We're hoping to get this machine we're only asking for the $25,000 ability to bid up to buy this machine. Hopefully get it for a considerable amount less, with a resale value in 3 to 5 years. It's also going to give us the ability to stagger the purchasing of 2 new sidewalk machines, having two brand new ones bought in 2 consecutive model years. But then there's also that reliability of having that brand new one last year to be a good, reliable machine for the next 3 to 5 years, to rely on it heavily to be our sole machine for cutting trails and roadside ditches within the town. And it's just going to provide staff with a good ability to give this machine a test drive, see how the model works in our operations. And if there's anything else I can highlight or address the council.
Great, thanks, Jeff. Councilor Purnell.
Thank you, Worship, through you. Jeff, I'm not a fan of this proposal, and I'll tell you why. Is that the unit's 11 years old, and although the mechanics have gone over it and they say it's in good shape, it's still 11 years old. So you're going to be back here pretty soon asking us for more money. As you just said, we could do it in a few years for that. And it's a single purpose use machine. It's only used for the wintertime and for plowing sidewalks. We already gave you approval to purchase the new unit through DC funds of $300,000. My question to you is that I see in the report of the monies that you want to be able to bid up to, but then there's also another purchase of attachments for the new machine that we have. If you were to order a brand new machine for the $300,000 that we have already approved you for, what attachments are going to be coming with that machine?
Within the $300,000 allocation, there was identified for a new sidewalk machine to be purchased, a new 5-position plow and a sander unit. And then as well as that was the attachments in addition to the attachments we're asking for here to purchase as well, would be the boom flail mower and a rotary broom and water tank.
Okay, thank you. So that was the answer I was looking for. So in that 300,000, the extra parts that you're asking for in this particular report you have here, we would be getting in those monies, right? Because you're in the 300,000, that frail mower's coming and there's a sweeper and stuff like that, okay? So I really think the council should think about this for a second and just say, okay, maybe purchasing, because we have to bid on it, 11-year-old single-purpose use machine. Whereas development charges, so growth is going to pay for growth. Development charges will pay for a new machine that we've already approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Pennell. Is there anything else? Councilor Shank.
What's the width of the boom file mower? And that's for the same machine. That is for the trackless, like a purchase of a boom file mower, dual tire kit. Is that for a set of duals? Like,
Yes, through your worship, the duals, they have to be ran on the machine for stability reasons to run the boom flail mower. 5-foot cut. And that's used for in-town urban areas and trails and like down on the waterfront trail, and that's what we utilize there.
and the sweeper and everything else. So this $85,931, including HST, that's coming out of the original $300,000 development for the purchase. So you're about $215,000 left in that, and you want to put that into a reserve, which makes sense. All right. The only reason why my only experience is that I needed a zero-turn lawnmower. All right, for the farm, went ahead, diesel, Kubota, got it from the City of London, went through Gov Deals, was $4,500. I've had it for 8 years. Do you preventative maintenance and everything else on it? It's well built, it's solid steel and everything else. Really heavy duty done. Never had a problem with it, except for one little valve that I had to fix, but that was no problem. But the point was, it was money well spent. Your mechanics have already gone through it. They feel that they can get 3 or 4 years out of it and keep the rest in the reserves and have a fleet that we can fund and start putting into that also. So I'm in agreement with this.
Thank you, Councilor Shank. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Cower.
Just to clarify, Councilor Shank, I believe the sidewalk machine was paid out of DC, is that correct? But we can't take that money and put it into a fleet reserve, can we?
So the 300,000 for this purchase is a DC funded. So the reserve would continue to stay within the DC reserve, so it can't be used for other fleet. It still has to be embedded within the DC reserve, which is set aside for a trackless or a sidewalk remover, snowplow remover.
Yeah, it just remains in the DC reserves, and if we do go, and I agree with Councilor Shank. I like this idea. The $215,000 remains in the DCs, and there would be a subsequent ask or a new ask next year, the year after that, depending on the life expectancy of this used piece of equipment. But it would be a new ask that would come forward anyways for a subsequent snow or snowblower or sidewalk machine. So yeah, it's not actually going into another reserve. It's just simply staying in the DC reserves. But there would be a new ask. It doesn't guarantee you'd have to do a new ask whenever you think that it should be replaced. But I agree with Councilor Shank. I do agree. I like this. it keeps $215,000 in our DC reserves. It solves our problem, I think, if our folks are content and happy with the fact that if we were to lease one of these things for a winter, I'm sure we would probably eat up, if we could find one, to probably eat up that 25,000 pretty quick, I would think. So it sort of makes sense to me, but I do agree with Mike. I think it's a good idea. Go ahead.
But the reason why for what I think is an excellent idea, especially with the boom flail mower and everything else, and with the sweeper, is that our municipality is promoting now our right trails, and we're trying to get more trails and try to do the trails that we're doing. So the maintenance of these trails are going to be needed, and you can't run a zero-turn lawnmower along certain with a boom. You can go ahead and maintain these trails. So this is going to be a used item. You know what I mean? A very much a used item, and I can see for future use with it. And the point is of course, I'm always happier than spending 25,000 instead of 300,000. So I think it was that's the reason why I was agreeing also.
Thanks, Councillor Shank. Is there anything else? Go ahead, Councillor Pennell, then I'll go to Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Worship, through you. I just want to clarify that the unit for $25,000 is a winter use only, and it will be sitting throughout the summer and not being used. The attachments will be put onto the other machine that we already purchased, and will be used through the summertime. I just think that we should really seriously think about spending the money, get the new unit that can be used year round, and those attachments will either fit onto this unit or the one that we already have previous.
Thank you, Councillor Pennell. Go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. Alan, the $215,000 that stays in the development charges, the DC reserve, is it accruing interest?
Through your worship, timely question. We currently it's just in a general bank account and is just accruing general interest. We met with one investment today, and we have some investment plans for some of our accounts, and that is one of them. And we'll be coming back to council with some recommendations on kind of how we want to move things around. So coming shortly.
Okay, thank you. And my next question is down the road. So if we leave this money sitting for let's say we get 4 years out of this machine. Probably not unheard of. We're getting 20 years out of a tandem truck. So we leave the money sitting there, and all of a sudden we have to buy, due to the growth of the town, so new development, we have to buy another tandem truck. So we have to increase the fleet, not just maintain the fleet. That money has been sitting there. It could be used for another tandem truck, which is, and I have a hard time wrapping my brain around the fact that a tandem truck to plow snow is $412,000 and a sidewalk machine is $300,000. Like, that just blows my mind. There's only $100,000 difference, roughly, in the cost of those two pieces of equipment. I know there's attachments, et cetera, in there, but still, when you look at just the sheer scale of the equipment, it's kind of mind-boggling. I, too, am in favor of the staff recommendation, and I would like to put that on the floor as a motion. Would you like me to read it, Your Honor?
No, I'll go to Deputy Mayor Calvary. He's got a question or a statement. I'm going to go back to you if you want to make that motion.
Just one last question, Jeff. The old sidewalk machine that we replaced with the new one, what age was it?
2010, I believe.
Yes. So it was a 2010, we're basically it was done in 2023, right?
Correct.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Calvary. Councillor Hicks.
Thank you. I'd like to move staff recommendation that council receive for information infrastructure services sidewalk machine purchase report, and further that council approve for staff to bid up to $25,000, including payable HST on Kingston's 2013 Prenoth SW4S sidewalk machine equipped with snowplow and sander unit, and further that council approve the purchase of a boom flail mower, dual tire kit, 60-inch power angle sweeper, and water tank for $60,934.01, including payable HST.
Moved by Councillor Hicks. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Martin. Is there any further comments or questions or concerns with respect to the sidewalk machine purchase? Go ahead, Councillor Plow.
Through your worship, Jeff, what's the backup plan if we don't win this bid?
Alternative option listed for council is that we can go back to an open tender with the original plan that was awarded through the 2024 budget.
Thank you.
And that'll be brought back to council then?
That would be brought back to council for award.
Great, thank you. Deputy Mayor Coward.
So should we hold off doing the purchase of any of these other piece of equipment? Do we find out if we end up owning this used piece of equipment? Because if we don't end up buying the used one, are we going to then go forward to buying the one that you were already approved for with all the attachments?
That's correct. We did talk about this and we put in the report. If we were we do need them pieces of implements, especially the boom flow more, as we're receiving complaints of parsnip and weeds on our trail sides and in town. We do not have that piece of equipment, but we did identify if we're going to go with a different route, we'll do an open tender for the entire purchase that was identified in the 2024 budget. Yes.
Thank you.
So it sounds like to me we won't be buying anything till we find out the results of the sidewalk machine. And then depending on how that plays out, we'll have a better idea as to how we're going to move forward.
Yes. So the recommendation tonight would be, if council so choose, we would, if they approve this recommendation, we would move forward with the purchase of that machine. If we were successful, we would then move forward with the purchase of the attachments through the canoe procurement program for the other machine. If that purchase was unsuccessful, staff would not move forward with any of those purchases. We would go to an open tender process and then come back to council with a recommendation of purchase at that time.
Great. I think, are we all clear with respect to that? Is there anything else? Councillor Martin.
Yeah, I would like to point out too that it's possible, you said yesterday, that we could get this for $15,000 as opposed to 25. 25 is the top, right?
Yes, staff is just seeking the approval to go up to an upset limit of $25,000 for this purchase. And hopefully with every stars aligned, we can get it for cheaper.
I'd much rather spend 15, 25,000 than 300,000 at this point in time, for sure. Thank you. Thanks, Jeff.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Martin. Is there anything else? If not, we do have a motion on the floor. We'll call the vote. All in favor of the motion that's on the floor. Opposed? It looks like I'm going to vote and I'm going to support the motion that's on the floor. The motion is carried. Moving on, Greater Napanee bylaw to establish regulatory warning signs. Is that one yours as well, Jeff?
Yes, your mayor. I'll be here to speak on the bylaw and policy to establish for the implementation of implementation of regulatory warning signs within our municipality. The town of Greater Napanee has received several requests from the community for pedestrian warning signs over the years. Similar to the already passed bylaw of the County of Langston-Ankton, staff have developed a bylaw and policy for pedestrian warning signs. The proposed policy includes the requirement for written requests from a parent or guardian with supporting documentation of the risks. And the parent is required to inform the town in writing on an annual basis if the sign is still required. Staff, that's pretty much in a nutshell of the need for this. Staff would like to have a good formal decision matrix for installing these signs. And then this was developed through our TAC group and passed by the county, I believe, last year. just to have follow-up on an annual basis. These signs tend to be put up and then forgot about maybe until we're doing a reflectivity test, and then we don't have a contact, or we didn't have a recorded address for some of the older signs that were implemented as to who to follow up with if they're still needed. So this process would have a little bit of a criteria and a physician requirement for the need, backup information for the need of the signs. And if they met that criteria, then they could be implemented at a location that was approved. And then we had an annual follow-up to identify the need of the sign. And then when the persons requiring the sign turned the age of 18 years old, the sign would then be removed. So it just gives some criteria.
Great, thanks, Jeff. Is there any questions or comments with respect to Jeff's report or his presentation? Seeing none, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Shank.
Move staff recommendation.
Motion to move staff recommendation to receive the information infrastructure services Greater Napanee bylaw to establish regulatory warning signs report, seconded by Councillor Hicks. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion is carried. Town Hall interior update. I think at this point, I think we'll take about a 10-minute break. But before we go, I think we're going to need a motion to go past 10 o'clock. Moved by Councillor Hicks, second by Councillor Shank. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks, folks. We'll see you about 10 minutes. Great. Welcome back, everyone. Sorry for the delay. We're going to get back into our agenda. Next up, 9.9 Town Hall Interior Update. And Andy, I see you've come to the front, so whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have nothing more to add to the report at this time, but happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Annie. Who wants to start? Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship, through you. Annie, thanks a lot for this report. As the chair of the Market Square Committee, is my understanding that the downstairs space was going to be used as a flex space so that we had multiple people using it as long as it was a book space. And I see that the Arts Committee is asking for a Thursday and a Saturday on that. So I don't see any issues with that at all. I'm not quite sure why we're having this report given to us. And as long as it can remain a flex space, and that if they happen to be doing something on Thursday, if it's cleaned up so that somebody else could have it on Friday, I don't see an issue with this at all.
Thank you, Councillor Pennell. Is there anyone else that would like to comment? Deputy Mayor Calver. Who can answer that one?
Through Your Worship, to Deputy Mayor Calver, in relation to the groups using it, or I guess, can I have further clarification on the question? Through Your Worship, Deputy Mayor Calver, so there has been first coat of paint applied to the majority of the main floor. That came out of discussions with the Market Square Advisory Committee, and my belief was that staff assumed it was more of an operational aspect. We did have volunteers offer to do it, and it was along the lines of what has previously happened at North Fred Hall, where a group of volunteers were also utilized to paint that facility a few years ago as well.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Calver. Is there anything else before I weigh in? Councillor Hicks.
So the art, sorry, I just want to make sure I get it right. So the art in the square, that proposal is coming from the art collective, right? Am I using the correct term, the art collective? When you're hanging, so I understand about all the rail system and the paint and all that good stuff. If you are using the space on Tuesdays and Saturdays, pardon? Oh, sorry, Thursdays and Saturdays, 2 days a week. Are the artists that are using the space going to come in and remove their paintings in order for other users to use the space to prevent potential damage to their works, that sort of thing? Like, I'm thinking music groups, or I don't know, just any other group that's coming in. If you've got a work of art hanging on the wall, the potential is there for damage. So I'm just wondering if there was what the solution to that is.
Through Your Worship, to Councillor Hicks, the Market Hall Collective has looked at various forms and waivers from other art shows, have participated in the county's museum, like the juried art show that is there, and have looked at the best practices for those. And we're looking to implement that here. The idea would be that the art would remain up for, say, a 3-month period. The artist would be well aware that it would be installed the entire time and that other groups could be using it. And that would be part of the, I guess, risk in showing here, but also that there would be additional eyes from committees using it, or people coming through that would have a greater audience for their works, was the idea at this point that the collective had come up with.
Go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
And one further question. I know previously when I have volunteered, I usually have to sign a waiver. Was that done in this instance, using volunteer, and not North Fred. I don't know about North Fred, but just recently at this site, was there a waiver signed by the people participating as volunteers in the work?
Through your worship to Councillor Hicks, not for this particular work, but the volunteer that was in this case is one of the committee members that I believe would be covered under the committee volunteer form and everything that way under our policy.
Thank you, Councillor Hicks. Is there anything else? I'm now going to weigh in. Here's my concern. Is the space downstairs has never been brought to council as far as how we're going to use it. We've not received a minutes report from the Market Square Committee in 2024. The last committee minutes we've received from that committee was in August of 2023. The space downstairs, while the ideas that have come through, which I'm sort of picking up piecemeal because we've not received any minutes from the Market Square Committee, may not be bad ideas. I think we're a little preemptive in making those decisions, and those decisions haven't been made by council. When I read the report, there was a suggestion that Thursday nights and Saturdays, the collective members volunteered to commit their time for the pilot project. Unfortunately, the space downstairs isn't ready for those things. We may have some other ideas. We may have some bigger ideas. We may have some better ideas. However, there's still things within this building. One of them, the main things, is that there's no washroom downstairs. So we would have to come up with a plan as to where are people going to use the bathroom? Are they going to be escorted upstairs? And I don't think they have the ability to go downstairs because there's still documents in the basement that members of the public shouldn't access or have access to. So while certain things on the surface appear to be maybe viable uses of the space downstairs, I think we're extremely preemptive in suggesting that those things can take place, especially right now. Like I say, my concerns is I've not seen any minutes from the committee in a year. From the report we've seen, there's a suggestion that there's resolutions that have come out of that committee, but those haven't been presented to council. And we have to keep in mind that committees of council are just that. They're advisory committees. They're not decision-making committees. And so my concern is committing to, and as a matter of fact, prior to even receiving this report, I had no idea who the collective members, the Market Hall Collective is, and I still don't know who they are. I think those are important things to see, to hear. I think it's important that this council should see and hear those things prior to any type of a decision-making being made. Those are my thoughts on it. Mr. Grant?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and I think one of the questions I heard from Councillor Pennell is why are we seeing this report? And I can answer that. I asked for this report. I was looking to and understand is I know that council sought a visioning exercise for Market Square because I think there's a plan for that. In my experience, and it might be different here, but normally recommendations come back to council, a strategy might be developed and deployed, and to my knowledge, that hasn't come back to council. What I would recommend is that we perhaps get a report from where the council is or where the committee is at from an advisory committee, what kind of things that they're looking for, and what kind of strategy downstairs would we want to implement, and what kind of bookings, like would it be under the same booking system as town halls and the like. But that was my thinking in asking for this report and for the discussion. And I think that I think there's still, if there's a plan for downstairs, I think there's people that have got things in the works, and I think that it's incumbent upon council to consider those individuals as well and decide, is it, does a pilot go forward or would you have it in a different space? But I think if commitments have been made on behalf of the municipality, then I think it's incumbent upon us to actually consider that, the outcome of those events as well.
And I think we will. And thank you for reminding Mr. Grant that there's a suggestion of a pilot project. First I heard of it was in this report. I would think that if there was going to be a pilot project suggested or predicted or exercised, that, in my humble opinion, that probably should have been brought to council. And that pilot project was floated probably a year ago, and it's still not, other than this report this evening, is still not got here. So what I would suggest is that we suspend any activities at this point until we can get a clear picture or view as to what has taken place at the committee, any resolutions that came out of that committee, and a viable reasoning as to whether or not we can host anything down there. Because like I say, the reality of it is we haven't done a stitch of work down there as far as making it the facility or the room downstairs is an area that was designed for employees, not designed for to host members of the public. It's still only that. And until we make a decision on that and create a space that's open for the public, I really don't think we're in a position to offer it up at this point. So while the ideas may be very good ones, and I'd like to see them via the proper channels, I don't believe that we're in a position right now to honor those right now. But that's my personal opinion. But I'd like to see a staff report come back identifying a lot of the things that we spoke about tonight. Is there anything further? Yep, go ahead, Annie.
Through your worship, I guess I just look for council direction then on 2 events that are planned for the town. The Culture Days event was held last year on the main floor, and the downtown shopping party. So I guess we're going to hold off on the main floor. I just look for direction on if we were going to relocate those events until we are able to come back with the full report.
I think we do have none of those events are going to happen before the end of August, I'm thinking.
Nope, but the Culture Days event would happen September 21st. So multiple committees are in the process of planning it. And we'll be meeting next week to have a fulsome discussion about it. And currently, the plan was to host it in Market Square and the main floor of Town Hall as well.
And we may have to do some research on that. When you say the intent was to hold it in Market Square, was that outside or was that to use the inside of the facility?
Through your worship, both areas for a chalk event on the exterior and then some different displays within the main floor.
Okay. Do we have the opportunity to bring this back in the next 4 weeks to give council a clearer view as to where the heck are we? Mr. Grant.
Short answer to that, Mr. Mayor, is yes. I think we can get an assessment of resolutions of the Market Square Committee. Bring a process where those resolutions become before council at some point for a decision. But in the meantime, we can certainly give council an update more informally as to, what the mandate of the committee was, what resolution put forward, and what the mechanisms to enact those would be. And we can get started on that as early as this week.
And we will have the ability to address the functions that are coming up in the next 6 or 8 weeks.
Mr. Mayor, I'll be able to give a council an answer on that within the next week. I would just need to get a sense of the scale and scope of the events commitments that have been made on behalf of the municipality and what that might look like. So I need to do a bit of investigation and rather be able to give you a fulsome answer on that.
Great, I appreciate that. Madam Clerk.
Through your worship, I did just also want to take the opportunity to offer my apologies as the secretary to the Heritage Committee, since we are one of the other committees involved in the planning and also failed to bring advance reporting to council on this. But also just note that as specifically the Culture Days, because that is a town initiated event, it is fully intended that town staff will be present within the building through the entire time that it is open to the public. That has been built into the planning, understanding that we are still in a somewhat limited capacity with this building, not fully where we would be able to rent it out to the public the way we do our other facilities. So it just to address that immediate concern.
Okay, thank you. Can that information be included in Mr. Grant's report as to how we're going to try and resolve that?
Absolutely.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
Through you, your worship. Annie, correct me if I'm wrong, last year there were portable toilets provided outside for the public. Nobody was using the bathrooms within the building, correct? Okay.
That is
I know
correct.
because I volunteered here last year, so, okay. One concern I do have is with the work going on the exterior of the building, have we talked to the brick painters about moving their equipment out of the way in the event that they're, like, hopefully they're done by then, but if they're not, like the front steps or the front of the building will be accessible? Because I know a lot went on at the front of the building as well.
Yes, through your worship, Councillor Hicks, those discussions have taken place, and we've been given reassurances that the work should be completed at that time.
That's it, Councillor Hicks.
So who is the collective? I'm going to ask this question. I think I know who one member of the collective is, but I'd like to know who is the collective and, yeah, can you fill us in on that?
Through your worship to Councillor Hicks, the driving forces have been Lisa Koenig and Heidi Lind. They have done the majority of the work and research on this project and have a group of artists that they've been in contact with that are waiting in the wings for an opportunity to show their work in a local space. But Heidi and Lisa have been the main forces behind the collective.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, well, Jessica alluded to the fact that the Heritage Committee's joining the Arts and Culture Committees with having a function on September 21st. So we're going to know need to know as soon as possible whether we can use the building, because you can't just, have it happen within a week or two. You have to advertise it, and like we have things like the town crier coming, that sort of thing. Like we'd have to cancel a bunch of stuff. So I just think we need to do this. I would like to see it at least the next council meeting resolved.
I think that's what the intent is, Councillor Martin. We do have a regular session of council on the 27th of August. That gives 4 weeks to try and sort through a number of moving parts here that are going to have to be addressed.
Okay, I thought I heard 4 to 6 weeks, so
I'm pretty sure Mr. Grant can put clear the waters here, I'm sure, in the next 4 weeks. Am I correct, Matthew?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to members of council, we can certainly come up with a report. I think we need to keep in mind any of the commitments that we've made. But what I would suggest is maybe we also think of the broader plan for Market Square. I think my understanding of how advisory committees work, and I'm happy to be corrected because I've been here a couple of weeks, but is normally you have advisory committee to set forward ideas which result in recommendations to council, which result in a strategy. It's unusual in my experience to see things booked before those things have been brought forward to council, before sort of a process for booking has been made and that sort of stuff. That would be a very unusual thing for me. But I think that having those sort of the fulsome conversations and recommendations and resolutions come forward for council's consideration, I think that gives staff the ability and the direction from council to make any other, I guess, decisions that need to be made in terms of bathroom availability, functionality of the space. How do we make the space? Is it bookable for everyone? Is it specific for individual special events. I just, we'd want to put some criteria around it because it's a public building.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Grant. Is there, Councillor Norrie?
Yeah, I agree with everything about getting the committee's direction is what they're doing, but Cultural Days is a town-run function. It's nothing to do with, it is to do with the committees, but the town runs it, like Canada Day. They have to make plans. Can't they be told to go ahead like last year, make their plans and run the function because that's their job? Or are we going to step on the toes?
I don't think it's a matter of telling them what to do or running the function. It's a matter, the crux of the conversation is the use of this building. And I'm not sure whether they used this building last year, but I'm sure that they didn't. Or did they? Did you? Okay, good enough. Needless to say, there's a lot of moving parts here that we got to get sorted out in the next 4 weeks. And I've got all the faith in the world that Mr. Grant will be able to sort those things out and come back to us, make things a little clearer.
And I would say, Mr. Mayor, in the meantime, we'll reach out to the groups. We'll make sure that they're involved. And it will, if the best recommendation is that, you know, a pilot continue, then we'll make that, but we'll also make sure that there's input from them and that sort of thing. But it's I think having everybody's broad awareness about the steps that would happen with the building, the future of the building, would probably be advisable. And if we did have an event last year and it's the will of council that they allow that to go forward again this year, you know, prior to any sort of official plans being made for the building, then that can certainly proceed.
Great, thank you. Is there anything else? Thank you. We will look for, we have a recommendation that council receive for information the town hall interior update report. And further, the council, the recommendation is to determine whether Market Hall collective pilot project proceed in 2024. I think we've probably dug a lot deeper than just that. So, Madam Clerk, would it be appropriate that we ask for a staff report to be brought back at the next regular session of council with respect to the Market Hall collective? There's a pilot project and the use of town hall.
Through your worship, so to confirm, what you are looking for is receive this report for information, further council direct staff to report back to the next meeting on August 27th regarding all future use plans for Town Hall, Market Square?
I think
or
that's
just the Market Hall collective specifically?
I think all uses, I think at this point, we've got a lot of folks that are trying to access and use this, and we've got to come up with a plan with respect to how we're going to use it. So, and I think that decision has to be one that's made by council. So I like the all uses. Deputy Mayor Calver.
Could we also get in that, you know, a way of securing the upstairs council chambers as well?
I think that may be part of the report with respect to the use of the downstairs, which is going to be reflected of how we are going to be able to secure both the upper level and the basement of the building. So,
thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Shank.
So not to belabor this any longer, but can't wait till August 27th to get this final report when you have a date of September 21st. So the point is, as soon as that Mr. Grant has this available, this report is available, if he could email it to us, and then we could have a special meeting or whatever we happen to have to do, just so we can make that decision when we have all the minutes and they have all the information in front of us, so we can get that decision back to the proponents that are going to be using it, so they can get that as quickly as possible. That's all I'm suggesting. It's just because if we wait till the 27th, well, that's the 28th, and then you got less than 3 weeks to go ahead. And so that's all I'm saying is you know, the urgency behind it. So I know what you said earlier. So that's all I'm saying.
Mr. Grant.
Through the mayor to Councillor Shank, we can certainly expedite that, and I see the point. we can call a special meeting. And I think that, the report should be twofold. How do we deal with the situation at hand? But I think the larger issue is, what is the process in place for a larger plan for Market Square that the advisory committee is advising into? And then if it's going to be a space for members of the public at large, how do people access that? Is it bookable space? What are the rules around it? What things need to be made to the building from security and accessibility perspectives and the like? So we can cover both of those things, and I'll look to expedite that and have it done as quickly as possible.
Councillor Hicks.
Through you, your worship. So, and I agree with what Councillor Shanka said and also Councillor Nori regarding Culture Days. It is a town-run and sponsored event, so the sooner we have this resolved, the better. Looking backwards, earlier this evening, we've also asked staff to dig deep about the plow truck. So if we're going to have a special meeting, can I ask that we cover both subjects in the same meeting so that on August 27th, we're not sitting here at 11 o'clock at night with these, and we can get staff the answers that they're looking for sooner rather than later. Whatever date works. I know people have vacation planned, but I myself left August 13th open because I figured that there would be a special meeting in August, and I'll leave it at that.
If a special meeting is required, we will call one. We're not there yet, just yet. I think we got to take one day at a time at this point and allow Mr. Grant to evolve as far as what's going on here. So, yeah, Councillor Nori.
I don't want to see Mr. Grant rush this report either, because this is a very important building. But Culture Days is very important. Can't we tell staff to go ahead and just run it like they did last year and trust they can do it? They'll be here on the Saturday. They know what they're doing. They did an excellent job last year. Brian and I did a tour. We were here as well, and the town really liked it. And I really don't want to stop that. And 3.5 weeks isn't enough time for them to, get it going. Because I know our group's down at the park, the other group's up here, people go back and forth. It's a really great day. So can't we just trust staff to run Culture Days and wait for the report for the other stuff so it isn't rushed?
We could. I would like to find out exactly what the purpose and what's going to be required as far as the Culture Days are. Again, I've not seen anything on that, so unless maybe somebody else has, but I've not seen anything on it as far as what's involved in it, the use of the building, or what's going to happen within the municipality. So I don't want to deter Culture Days from happening, but I also would like to make an informed decision on it. Let's allow Mr. Grant at least a few days to sort this out.
Mr. Mayor, I can try to aim to have something done by middle to end of next week, and I'll just clear my schedule.
Great, thank you. Is there anything further? Madam Clerk, we do have a resolution or a motion ready.
Yes, through your worship, I don't believe anyone has moved anything specifically yet, but based on the discussion, we did have the council receive for information the town hall interior update report, and further council direct staff to report back to the next regular session meeting on August 27th, 2024, regarding all proposed public uses of the town facility. I don't know if that requires any further refinements based on this additional discussion.
Moved by Councillor Hicks, seconded by Councillor Shank. Is there any further conversations we'd like to have with respect to this?
I think the lesson is learned that this shall not happen again.
We're going to move forward. And I think we will move forward in a very positive way. We have a motion on the floor. All in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Bylaws. Bylaw number 2024-0039 to provide for the disposition of surplus land 11 and 13 Market Square. We'll look for a motion to put the bylaw on the floor. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Hicks. Ready first, second, and finally passed this 23rd day of July 2024. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Bylaw number 2024-0040 to permanently close and convey an unopened municipal highway, Calvary Church. We'll look for a motion to put it on the floor. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Martin. Ready first, second, and finally passed this 23rd day of July 2024. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Bylaw number 2024-0041 to establish regulatory and warning signs. Look for a motion to put it on the floor. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Norrie. Ready first, second, and finally passed this 23rd day of July 2024. Bylaw 2024-0042. Thank you, Madam Clerk. A bylaw to acquire 893 County Road 41. Look for a motion to put it on the floor. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Hicks. Ready first, second, and finally passed this 23rd day of July 2024. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Bylaw 2024-0043, a bylaw to sell 200 Kimmett Side Road. Look for a motion to put it on the floor. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Deputy Mayor Calver. Ready first, second, and finally passed this 23rd day of July 2024. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Information reports from members. Do any members have any information reports? Seeing none. Inquiries. Do any members of council have any inquiries they'd like to make? Seeing none. Notices of the motion. Is there anyone that would like to make any notices of motion? Seeing none. Do we have any new business this evening? Seeing none. Announcements. Does anyone have any announcements they'd like to make? Deputy Mayor Cower.
Actually, I have a few announcements. This week is movie night in the park. Starts Friday night there. It begins at dusk. Anybody wants to go down and check that out, that's going on. And our 191 fair starts August 2nd to the 5th at the fairgrounds here in Napanee. And at this time, I'd also like to wish a farewell to Peter. This is his last council meeting with us tonight after 32 years with the corporation. Peter's retiring on us, so I just want to wish Pete all the best in the future.
Great. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Culver. And yes, best wishes, Peter. I know it goes by pretty quick. And congratulations. And I'm sure we'll see you around, if not town, we'll see you around the rink, I'm sure. So are there any other announcements? Seeing none. CEO's remarks. Mr. Grant, did you have any remarks you'd like to say this evening?
Nothing this evening, Your Worship.
Thank you. The forward calendar. I know we've all had an opportunity to see the forward calendar. Is anything in the forward calendar anyone would like to ask about or speak to? And we've also got the council resolution tracker. Is there anything in there that anyone would like to speak to? Seeing none. I'll look for a motion for a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council for the Corporation Town of Greater Napanee. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Martin. Ready first, second, and finally passed this 23rd day of July 2024. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Look for a motion for adjournment. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks, folks. It's been an extremely long evening, so we'll see you in a month or so.